inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross out the ones who heard my cries and watched me weep. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee? I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in their cradles, profanities. Some days I feel skinnier than all the other days. Sometimes I can't tell if my body belongs to me. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush. Hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell. I wanna taste consumption. Breathe faster to waste oxygen. Hear the children sing aloud. It's music till the wick burns out. Be carefree lately, yeah. Just picking up daisies. Got one too many quarters in my pockets. Counting like the four-leaf clovers in my locket. Untied laces, yeah. Just tripping on daydreams. Got dirty little lullabies playing on repeat. Might as well just ride around the nursery and count sheep.
What up? Apologies for my tardiness. Dance card got a little full today. We have a basketball tournament here in Asheville, the Ingles 2025 SoCon Basketball Championships that I will be featured at quite a bit over the next few days. I had to make sure that all the equipment was right. I had a couple interviews talking about the draft, and I did want to make sure that I got back to you guys with enough time to actually do all of these things. So today we're going to do things a little bit differently. Obviously, I did not get to as many risers and fallers as I wanted to yesterday. So we're going to do that in today's program. We're going to record tomorrow's ESPN radio show. So, and we have a lot of big news to talk about. So I will give you the uncensored things to begin with, and then we'll really get started with the recordings and things. Max Crosby just signed for a whole shitload of money. I'm good with it. Look, I don't think the Raiders are as far away as everybody else does. I saw some comments in some Discord threads that I was in that basically said poverty franchise doing poverty things. That's the best player on that team, and it's not particularly all that close. So, and the Raiders had a lot of money. You're trying to get everything cleared up. He is, without a doubt, your franchise player. And so it's really hard. It's hard to chase the Sam Darnolds of the world and the trying to get a quarterback and not take care of your own guys. Plus, it's a homegrown guy. And he wants to be a Raider for life. I give it an A-. The real loser is anybody that has to sign another edge rusher. The Dallas Cowboys. Because Micah Parsons is sitting at home rubbing himself in a dirty way. Because if Max Crosby just got 35.5, he's looking for 40. Won't get it, but you're going to get more. Also, we have the breaking news of DK Metcalf has requested a trade, which steers into a lot of things that we have talked about here. I also told you Tyler Lockett would be going. That is official as of today. He has been released by the Seattle Seahawks, or will be as soon as the league year actually starts. DK is interesting in that I think there will be a market for him. It just won't be as high as you think. So I don't know. Dana R. said a third of the Raiders cap room gone on one player that was already on their bad defense. So that actually has nothing to do with their cap space. He was already signed for this year. That is an extension that starts a year from now. And here's why I think it was so smart. Always be the first one when you have a bunch of guys coming up. Because if Micah Parsons had got, let's say Jerry just completely caved and gave Micah Parsons $40 million, you're not coming in lower than that. I actually thought this was a really smart move by Tom Telesco to keep him around. Is it a bit of an overpay? Sure. Will it look like an overpay by the time it starts? I don't think so. Because, I mean, you got to think Trey Hendrickson's up. Myles Garrett's going to get another. He's going to get another deal. It could go crazy. So, I'm good with it. DK, who are the suitors going to be? He wants to go to a contender. You mark my words, Washington is in on that. Big-bodied receiver to put on the other side of Scary Terry, even with Debo. They didn't give up much for Debo, and that contract voids in a year. So I would not say, and I talked about this with the Commanders guys, don't think they're out of the receiver market just yet. So he wants to go to a contender. I would look. Detroit is interesting. Baltimore is very interesting for DK Metcalf. And these are just off the top of my head. Buffalo would be interesting. There are a lot of teams that would be interesting with DK Metcalf, but we're going to talk about that in the ESPN show. Joe Thuney got traded this morning, which means he's about to fall to fucking bits with the Chicago Bears. No team in the NFL is better on tapping out on a guy right before he falls to shit than the Kansas City Chiefs. I saw that and immediately went, uh-oh. Uh-oh. If they're trading one of the better offensive linemen on that team after what we just saw, it means he's about to fall to pieces. But Chicago could get a good year or two out of him. Derpy Entertainment said Houston would be interesting. Bad news on Tank Dell. He's having to have the ACL done on his knee. I believe it was either today or yesterday. I don't see much of a way that he plays next year, and if he does, it won't be until very late in the season. So Houston, certainly interesting, because right now they could be going into the season with Nico Collins and John Mechie and me. So Houston will definitely be in that market. Tyler Lockett, the only thing I will caution you on Lockett is he did not look like himself last year. So I think there will be a market for him. I think it comes in markedly lower than what people think. If you guys have any questions that you want me to uncensored answer before we get this started, I would like to have this live stream started by 2:30 to record the ESPN show just because I am so damn tired. Like, I'm just being honest with you guys. I slept like 10 hours last night. I still don't feel right. I guess that's what happens when you go 47 days without sleep. Great North Sports asked me, brother, where did you have Tet going in the post-combine mock draft? That was to the Seattle Seahawks. Oh, and Timothy O'Toole, you're right. It's John Spytek, not Tom Telesco. I forgot Telesco got he got eradicated. You are right. My brain's not working on it's not getting on full brain batteries. But that Tet to Seattle thing does look a lot more promising now with the potential that Seattle's going to have Jake Bobo and Jackson Smith and Jigba as the only receivers in that room. I had heard that at the combine. I'm not necessarily going to say I was putting a ton into it, but it was out there enough that I started thinking you could have them move off DK and Tyler Lockett, and that would be a lot. Seattle, interesting team going into the offseason, for sure. The Bears did make 2 splash moves on the offensive line, Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson, in back-to-back days. So that does tell me that I will say Chicago's probably not on the Myles Garrett front, just solely because you'd have to give him a big new deal in a year, and you eventually run out of compensation. But Chicago definitely all in. That steered into something that I said today on the ESPN radio show of Chicago is just in full-on all-in mode. And look, I think that's a team that's going to be markedly better next year. If there's anybody that can get the most out of Caleb Williams, it's Ben Johnson. Apologies. I have to do a better job of staying hydrated today. And yes, I do see the irony that I just said hydrated as I drink Coke. It is Coke Zero, though. Watching my girlish figure. Any questions that you want answered uncensored, get those in as quick as we can. And we'll get kicking in the ESPN radio show here in just a few minutes. Derpy, I agree with you. Washington's still the team that I'm looking at going, you make a lot of sense for Myles Garrett. Detroit does too, though. That almost feels like a 2-horse race between Detroit and Washington. Oh, yeah. Another thing that I need to talk about before we get into the ESPN show. So tomorrow, we'll be doing the same thing again tomorrow. That'll be recording for Friday. Then Friday, we don't have a show to record because I don't record that far in advance. Listener mock draft. I want to fill out a 32-man mock draft. You will have to have a membership with Walk the Mock. But the good thing is that with that, we just signed a deal with Walk the Mock, and we have a promo code. I'm going to put that in the chat right here. It gets you 20% off either your first month or the year. I did the year. But I also do a lot of mock draft things. So Walk the Mock, it's $24 for the year. And I just went ahead and did it. Now I'm also a person that I do mock drafts all year long. Oh, let's see. Derpy asked me my winner for the Arnold Palmer this weekend. I'm not going to lie to you. I have a friend that does golf DFS. And so I always defer to him. Let's see. Let's see if he's picked a winner. Really good odds on. My first 2 thoughts were Rory and Scotty Scheffler. Tommy Fleetwood's an interesting one, too. He always plays well here, and he sucked balls last year. Yeah, I mean, those are going to be my. I'm going to steer into. I'm going to steer into Fleetwood, Scheffler. Scheffler's always been good here. Rory. I want to throw a lower tier guy. You know what? I'll go with the Canadian. Let's go Corey Connors. I just spent a week with a Canadian, so I be kind to the Great White North. Derpy with a Talking about the Masters, I don't tend to, with golf is such a, oh, hold on. The stream blipped, so I'm going to give it a second to catch back up. All right, we should be good now. He was asking about a Masters pick. I will give you one of those closer to the tournament. It's such a rhythm sport. It's hard for me to say a month out. I mean, a guy could have 2 god-awful tournaments in a row, and all of a sudden I'm super off of him. But I will be sure to give one of those closer to the event itself. All right, so what we're going to do here, we're getting more viewers into this. If you don't know who I am, I'm Jeremy Green of ESPN Radio Asheville, and we are in kind of a weird boat of my radio partner is up in Washington. He is basically lobbying Congress to keep AM radios in cars, so I'm having to do the show by myself. So we're recording the show here. If you have questions, I'll give you the show rundown. We're going to start with the moves from today. Actually, that's a lie. We're going to start with risers and fallers from the combine. In the second hour, we will get into the Joe Thuney thing, the DK Metcalf thing, all of those. And then in the final hour, we will do free agency previews for the AFC East and the NFC East. So many of those teams don't have money that I just kind of combine them into 1 hour because there's not a lot to talk about with the Bills. They have no money whatsoever. So the Cowboys are in the same boat. The Eagles are in the same boat. Their biggest free agency ads would be their own players. So we're going to get started here in just a second. I do have Shedeur Sanders news that I didn't want to share this until I was completely confident. I am completely confident. We will also have risers and fallers that maybe some people didn't talk about. I basically did my top 250, so my draftable board. I am now done with that. Not saying guys can't sneak in it after I watch a little bit more film on them, but in large part, I feel pretty solid. I've got 350 guys on my board as of right now. And that goes all the way through priority undrafted free agents. And there were some guys that I noticed, so I'm just going to go position by position of this guy rose. I don't really know why he rose, but he did. And some of them rose to where I had them. One of them whose last name is Dart. Ches says he's going to restart YouTube. You should not be getting lag now. I'm running at about 5,000 kilobytes per second. So we should be good, but I'm not going to lie to you. So YouTube is reading as just good. So there may be something up with YouTube. I can tell you there was this morning. I couldn't even hardly use it this morning. It's another reason that I pushed back. I was like, fuck it. If YouTube's not going to work, I'm going to go take care of the other things I have to do. But in terms of from me, it should be good. Matthew Hoffman asked, is Jackson Dart going to be a Jet? I really think so. I really believe he is. All right, we are to excellent connections. All of my lights are green, which means go, which means ESPN Radio starts now. Welcome into the Sportsocracy. I'm Jeremy Green at ESPN Draft Nerd on the Twitter machine. And again, we are tankless today, but we have a ton to talk about. Big contracts in the NFL. We've got guys that want out, potential places that they could be in. Looking at you, DK Metcalf. We've already had some trades. We're really getting kicked off into the NFL season. You can find us on all the social medias at the Sportsocracy. And as always, we're brought to you by Ingles Markets. Low prices, love the savings. This weekend in Asheville, the 2025 Ingles Southern Conference Championships, crowning 2 basketball champions, one in the women's conference, or one on the women's side, one on the men's side, and I will be there off and on all weekend. Tank and I will also be live from the championship game 5 to 7, and then we will be there for the game as well. Great chance that we will be doing some on and around the court things right there around the championship game. Now, as all of you know, I just got back from Indianapolis with the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine, and I had to get my notes right. This is the time of the year where I start setting the board and getting players in places and figuring out where they're going to go and with fits and different things like that. Over the last few days since I left Indianapolis, I've been solidifying my final big board. I am a little bit different from other people. There is nothing you can do at your pro day short of fly. I have been duped by more pro days over the years, not necessarily of guys that I got that I was neutral on or even negative on, that I went crazy about. It was more I liked them. Then they did something in that really controlled pro day environment, and I went from liking them to loving them. I'm not going to say I ignore the pro days, but in large part I do. So I'm solidifying the board. I have 350 prospects on my board that have either draftable grades or priority undrafted free agent grades. So we're going to start with the most important position, and that's quarterback. I'm going to make this perfectly clear. There is not a team in the NFL that does not have Cam Ward as the one. Not a single one, and I talked to plenty of them. Cam Ward has distanced himself to such a point that I think he is between 30 and 50 spots on most teams' big boards ahead of every other quarterback. So let's just put a pin in that and assume it's not going to change. Cam Ward's the first quarterback that comes off the board. If a team doesn't trade up to 1, I think there's a great chance that a team does if Tennessee's willing to move down. If a team doesn't trade up to 1, I would say Abdul Carter goes 1, Cam Ward goes 2, the draft starts at 3. Now, I have been of the belief that the New York Giants were just all in on Shedeur Sanders. There was no doubt that's where that was going to go. And then I went to Indianapolis, and then I started talking to contacts around the league. I can't tell you exactly how the Giants feel about him. I can tell you this, and I can tell you this unequivocally. There are a lot of teams that are very put off by Shedeur Sanders. Reports have come out over the last couple of days that a lot of teams did not like how he interviewed in Indianapolis. I heard that in Indianapolis. I can tell you we saw him in the media room when he came out to have his media availability. His avail was probably the biggest spectacle I've ever seen at the Combine. He was over the top. I thought he was likable, but it did feel very much a look at me, Deion Sanders kid show. That ruffled the feathers of a lot of people in the NFL. There's a report out today from Todd McShay that 2 teams that pick in the top 10 who interviewed Shedeur Sanders, I think I know who they are. I know who one of them is. I think I know who the second one is. Basically said he did not feel like he cared they did not feel like he cared about what they thought about him. Now, there are 2 ways to look at that. The way that a lot of people are looking at it today, which is Shedeur is just Deion's kid, and he's arrogant, and he's egotistical, and he doesn't really care what you think. Or you can take the path that I'm taking, which is I think he has a guarantee. I think he has a guarantee, and that guarantee is from the New York Giants. I think he's had a guarantee from the New York Giants for an extended period of time. And I go back to when he wore those Giants cleats, when they played BYU in the bowl game. A lot of people I knew thought that was very odd, that a player would be that open and out front with a team that didn't even have the number 1 pick at that time. We thought it was a great possibility. That's where they're going to wind up, but they didn't. If you kind of read the tea leaves, it makes a lot of sense that the Giants have told Shedeur, we're your floor. Because you think about all the players over the years that have refused to interview with teams or not really put much into it, it typically means that somebody has told you it's not going to matter. You're not going to get to 5. You're not going to get to 6. You're not going to get to 7 with the Jets. You're not going to get a 9 with New Orleans. So he's not putting anything into that. That is how I am choosing to read this. That the Giants have basically told him, you're going to be the number 3 pick in this draft. And he kind of bombed the interviews. I have a funny feeling that the teams that didn't love how he interviewed, and I have the schedule. I know where he went and when. I know who was first, and that team was blue. I know who was second. I know who was third. And it's not really hard to figure out where those reports are coming from. I will lay this on the line, and I firmly believe what I'm getting ready to say. I believe Jackson Dart will be a better NFL player than Shedeur Sanders will. I told you last week that it was trending in a direction that Jackson Dart was going to end up being my number 2 quarterback prospect. Not only is that true, he wound up being a full round ahead of Shedeur Sanders for me. Looking at my big board, I have Cam Ward as my only first-round quarterback. Jackson Dart is my only second-round quarterback. Shedeur Sanders has fallen all the way into the 3rd round for me. Started in the 2nd, now he's fallen into the 3rd. I don't like the tape, and I never have liked the tape. And then you come in and make this media spectacle, and Josina Anderson's talking about how all the media guys loved him. Well, I got this for you. The NFL guys didn't. One of the things that's different about me from a lot of other media guys is that a lot of my sources are not within the media. A lot of my sources are within teams. And so I hear things that are a little bit different from what you get from media guys. Because there are a lot of media guys that people with teams just won't talk to. You're notorious for putting out there what I told you, and somebody's not going to talk to you. I don't really have that problem. I'm not a journalist. I'm not a reporter. I'm not breaking news. I hear things. I say them here on this show. I'm not putting it out on Twitter. I don't care if you retweet me 25,000 times. That's not my shtick. My shtick is the draft. I want to tell fans, the people that have been around this show, the people that find this show, I want to tell you what it is that your team is going to do so you can be the most informed listener on draft day. That's who I owe my, and I use this term very loosely, journalism to. I don't care about breaking stories. It doesn't mean anything to me. Getting the beat on somebody on Twitter, that's not my shtick. I just want to be right. And right now it does appear that Jackson Dart had a really good combine. He's moved up for me. And I basically got to a point where I went, why am I doing this? I've loved Jackson Dart since he was at USC. I have not liked the tape on Shedeur Sanders since he was at Jackson State. Why do I not just call it what it is? I do have 2 third-round quarterbacks, Shedeur and Tyler Shuck. I think Shuck has played his way into the 2nd round in terms of where he's drafted. I have a 3rd-round grade on him. He was certainly a riser from the combine. He was absolutely out of this world good. From the interviews, he interviewed with everybody. And he killed it. He was fantastic. Then there's a huge drop-off. My 5 is Quinn Ewers. I don't think he rose or fell. He was what he was. I have a 4th-round grade on him. I have the 2 Ohio State guys, the former one in Kyle McCord, and then Will Howard. They are 5th-rounders for me. Will Howard did fall. I know that it's more in the media than it is around teams. His workout was really bad. I can't really remember one that was that bad all the way back to like Teddy Two Gloves. When Teddy Bridgewater came out with the gloves and he was awful. I think that's the last one I remember that was that bad. So I've kind of slotted Will Howard into where I thought he belonged in the first place, which is in the 5th round, and then Jalen Milrose in the 6th. I have a handful of guys that are borderline draftable. Riley Leonard, Curtis Rourke, Seth Hennigan. That's basically your entire quarterback class. That is the quarterback class for this draft in a nutshell. But there is there's fire to the smoke with Shedeur. Not everybody loved that. The media guys do because it's great for us. And that's something you have to remember. You have to take what media members say with a grain of salt. And I'll give you an example. Ian Rappaport. I think Rap Sheet is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in media. Not all the media guys love him because he doesn't do interviews on their show. They meet him at a bar. They think, oh, I've just met Rap Sheet, so I'm going to have him on my show. He's busy. He doesn't have time to do your podcast, even if it gets 10,000 views. He does McAfee. He does a ton of stuff with the NFL Network. He also has exclusive rights deals with the NFL. Doesn't allow you to talk to him. Doesn't mean he's a jerk. It means his deal doesn't allow you to do that. It doesn't make him a bad guy. It doesn't make him less honest. It doesn't make him any of those things. And you have to remember that when you deal with media reports. Always remember, I would say in terms of media guys, I'm in the top 5% of knowledgeable NFL draft guys. I kind of want to hand the number of times that a team has ever asked me my opinion on a player that I didn't feel like they were just trying to confirm their own opinion. So take what people in the media say about Shedeur Sanders with a grain of salt. Now, the next position that I want to talk about with risers and fallers from the combine is, I think, the second most interesting position in the draft, and that's wide receiver. Matthew Golden runs the blistering 4.29 40. No doubt, he's a riser. None of us expected him to run that fast. But he's not really the one I want to talk about. I will tell you, he has slid into the number one role. He is my wide receiver one. That sounds completely crazy. I don't think it's going to be crazy the closer we get. Because when you watch the tape, Matthew Golden was 2 or 3 anyway. Then you see that he has that crazy over-the-top speed. That's something that I think a lot of teams are really going to be attracted to. But for me, it wasn't so much that Golden confirmed a lot of things and he exceeded expectations. That wasn't so much it. Tetero and McMillan. We all had a lot of questions about speed anyway. I still have a lot of questions about speed. And then he didn't run. And when he didn't run, it shocked me how many people went, he's ducking this. He's ducking this because he knows. When we find out what that time really is, and I got news for you, he's not going to be able to duck it for long because he's going to run at the pro day or he's going to drop like a rock. We're going to know what that time is. And I have a fear. I heard 4.7 a bunch of times. Does that completely preclude him from being a good NFL player? No. No, it doesn't. I still think he's a top 20-ish player in this draft. He just fits in a very specific place. I need to get him to a quarterback that is really accurate. I need to get him to a quarterback where he can play on the outside and really handle corners. If I'm in a division with a lot of smaller corners, I don't have a problem with Ted McMillan because he's going to abuse you. He's really violent at the point of the catch. But he's not going to separate. So if you're one of these teams that live within the box of having 40 parameters, short shuttle parameters, 10-yard split parameters, he's not going to clear it. And there are a lot of those that just so happen to be picking in the top 15. I think Tet was a big faller from the combine. Another faller, and this is one that he's fallen like an absolute rock, Luther Burden III. You don't do anything to a point that I think you are far superior to so many other receivers in this class. I will be 100% honest with you. I have a third-round grade on Luther Burden III. I do not see any way at this point that he goes in the first round. If he does, it will be because Golden, McMillan, and Ibuka have already gone, and you find a team that is so desperate for an immediate contributor that can play out of the slot. Kansas City kind of falls into that. There are a handful of others that I look at and go, okay, in that offense, I get it. And they don't need somebody on the outside because the next 3 receivers on my board are all X's. I think Burden's going to fall like an absolute missile. Because he made you go back and watch the tape, and when you watch the tape, you don't like what you find. Conversely, one of the big risers from the combine, the Jalens and Jadens. Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Lane. They were all really good. And I think they all came up maybe half a round. I don't tend to bring guys up a full round. You can fall that far. It's hard for you to come up that far for me. But I do have Jaden Higgins now into the second round. I have Jalen Noel into the third. I had him at the top of the fourth anyway. So that's not a huge... He didn't do anything that surprised me. And I know I say this every year with the combine, but this is a really good time to put it in there. If a guy runs really fast and you expected them to run really fast, it shouldn't change anything. I call this the Xavier Worthy rule. We all knew he was going to run in the 4.2s. The fact he ran the fastest 40 ever, awesome. That was 0.05 of a second faster than I had him pegged to run, because I had him running a 4.26 before he did it. The guy that rises is Matthew Golden, who runs a 4.29, and I thought he was a mid-4.4 guy at best. I thought there was a possibility he was going to run slow. That guy jumps. Jaden Higgins, 4.47, I knew he was going to be somewhere in that vicinity. Now, I did go back and watch the tape, and something that I heard about how he separated out of the slot, I very rarely go big slot. There's not a ton of those. Jack Betch is one of those in this class. I don't tend to do that. When I looked at him out of the slot and I looked at the flexibility, that's what rose him, not the fact that he ran so fast. Savion Williams was another guy that fell. I feel like we're going to talk about him a lot on draft night, and probably not for good reasons. I think he's going to fall because nobody knows what position he plays. A lot of times in the media, we talk about guys that play positionless football like this is some great thing. It can be, specifically on defense. Offensively, if I can't figure out what position you play, how am I going to deploy you? If I graded him as a running back exclusively, he would be a 4th-round pick. If I graded him as a wide receiver exclusively, he would be a 6th-round pick. I took the high side, and that's where I have him, because I do think he's an athletic freak of nature. But the more I watch him and the more I watch Luther Burden, the more I can't figure out how am I supposed to manufacture your touches. I can hand you the ball, but if I'm going to do that, this is the best running back class I've ever seen. Why would I not just draft a running back? Another faller was Isaiah Bond. Don't come into that room and tell me you're going to run a 4.19 and not only were you not the fastest player of the week, you weren't the fastest player from your own school. And we all knew it. We heard him say it and just kind of looked around like, that was dumb. You should not have said that. And you have to know what your times are. I know there's been like a running joke of Isaiah Bond went down around because he was out talking about how fast he was going to run and things like that. No, you fell around because you have no awareness whatsoever. You know what your time is. You know we're going to figure it out because you had to run as soon as you said you were going to do that. Isaiah Bond, a faller for me as well. Final riser, just a guy I want to talk about because I'll go ahead and tell you I'm higher on him than everybody else is. This is my guy. Isaac Tesla from Arkansas is my guy. At this point, I'm everything short of his agent. I have him in the 4th round. I went back and watched his tape, and I think, honest to God, if he had played with a quarterback that was even competent, we would be talking about him in day 2. That's a plant your flag player for me, and I'm going to do it a lot over the next couple of months. All right, we've talked quarterbacks, we've talked receivers. I have a handful of other guys on offense, and I got a lot on defense that are risers and fallers from the combine. We have a jam-packed show today. We will be talking free agency in the Easts, NFC East and AFC East. Later in the program, we'll also be talking about trade requests from DK Metcalf, a trade of Joe Thuney. There's a lot going on in the NFL, and we're bringing it to you right here in the Sportsocracy, brought to you by Ingles Markets. Low prices, love the savings on ESPN Radio Asheville, 92.9, 880, and 1400. All right. One segment down. Let's go. Oh, I am so tired of recording shows. I know this doesn't mean anything to you guys, but it is so much bigger of a pain in the ass to have to record by yourself than it is to just do a live and have somebody talking with you. But I only have to do this one more time. Great North said, man, this feels familiar. It should. It should, because you got a first-hand look at it at the combine. All right. We're going to continue with the risers and fallers. If you guys have any questions, feel free to throw those in the comments. If they're not on topic, I obviously won't be able to answer them. I'll answer them in between like I'm doing right now. But I appreciate all of you guys. This does make it a lot easier. I am going to turn a light on, though, because it's about to it's about to go completely sideways outside, and there is a nice dark shadow on my face. The Eagles have re-signed Zach Bond. Ooh, how much did that cost? I have a funny feeling that got expensive. Oh boy. Oh, boy. 3 years, $51 million, 34 guaranteed. Additional $1.5 million in incentives and escalators. Holy shit. That's $17 million a year for an off-ball linebacker. My good golly. Look, kid earned it. He had a tremendous year. Flying Scotsman said, appreciate the grind. I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys for hanging out. It blows people's minds that I have been able to do this and people stick around to watch it recorded. I appreciate you guys more than I can ever say. Ches Johnson said, just get Tank on the phone for someone to talk to. So right now he is in a congressman's office. He is doing considerably bigger things than talking to me. Dana R asked, how high will Vincent go? I think I remember where I placed. I'm higher on him than most. I like him a shitload. I have him in the 4th round. If you don't know, Dana's talking about Carson Vincent from Alabama A&M. I like him, Jackson Slater, and Clay Webb way more than everybody else does. And I get it. They're 3. I did not realize this until I read an article about this from ESPN yesterday. Do you realize there were only 7 FCS players that were invited to the combine? I was there and didn't realize that. And none from the lower tiers. It was just 7 FCS guys. Mind-boggling. You want to talk about the effect of NIL? Found it. I have a 4th round grade on Vincent, for sure. Gambit said, Zach is one of the heartbeats of our defense. Unfortunately, I think this means Sweat and Milton were gone. I could have told you Sweat was gone easily a week ago. Milton, you had a shot, but it didn't make a whole lot of sense because you have Jordan Davis and you have Jalen Carter. It's too easy to replace him. Zach Bond, you had no one to replace him. I saw somebody say, well, they could replace him with Jeremiah Trotter. Yeah. And I could replace my wife with a pocket sock. Doesn't mean that I would want to or that it would go in any way well. All right, let me flip my podcast light on. I'll be right back. Okay. Much better. Sorry, there's a big window in my office studio, and when it gets cloudy outside, it starts to get dark in here in a hurry. Okay, check and make sure nothing else breaks on Twitter before I start back. That is a good start for the Eagles, though. Get Zach Bond back, get Saquon extended. Very, very solid. All right, I got to pull up. Need my rejoiner music, which is here somewhere. Here it is. Ain't no truth. All right. Segment 2 of the ESPN radio show starts now. Ain't no truth on the radio station. Somebody owes me an explanation. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up.
The Sportsocracy.
And I'm unapologetic.
Back here in the Sportsocracy, ESPN Radio Asheville, 92.9, 880, and 1400. And we're talking about risers and fallers from the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. David Smith of Armchair Commentary and I just knocked that one out for you guys. If you want to see the content from that and the live reactions and all the things, I think David and I were live for somewhere around we were live for about 40 hours while we were up there. I know we did one that was almost 7 hours long by itself. It was a lot of content. Greatly appreciate my guy, David Smith. His first NFL on site, and he just knocked it out of the park. Follow him on all the social medias at SportsocracyGN. Follow us on all the social medias at The Sportsocracy. And you can follow me on Twitter at ESPN Draft Nerd. The draft is my thing, and it's why we talk so much about it, and it's the lifeblood of NFL teams. We're continuing here talking about risers and fallers from the Combine experience. Now we're getting into running backs, and I'm going to be honest with you. The biggest riser for me was Marion Hampton. Now he is neck and neck with Ashton Jeanty with almost every analyst that I know. I don't think there's a possibility he goes ahead of Jeanty, but I think that's more because somebody may overdraft Jeanty. I can't say anymore that I would never draft a running back in the first round because I would take Hampton in the first round. I would take Jeanty at a point. I just don't think I would take him where he's going to go. He had a great week. He came in built like a Terminator. And then you go back and watch the tape and just go, you can do a little bit of everything. There's nothing wrong with your game. You don't have the big, oh my God, this is the reason that you're not going to be a bell cow running back in the NFL. And that's really rare. Very often we have huge red flags on guys. They can't catch. They can't pass block. They can't do whatever. They're not overly fast. They're not shifty. There's something that pushes down virtually every running back. Marion Hampton does not have that. He is now, I believe, 1A and 1B with Jeanty. I have him as 1A and Jeanty as 1B, just solely because I think more teams can use Hampton in their offense than can use Jeanty, but Jeanty has a higher ceiling. Another running back that helped himself out in Indianapolis was Quinshon Judkins. We knew he was going to come in built like a tank. I don't think any of us thought he was going to run like that. The workout was incredibly impressive. I do believe he passed Travion Henderson. I see Henderson in that top spot, going to the Browns a lot in the second round. I did not see that in any way. I also was not as high on Travion Henderson going in as a lot of other people were. I had a fringe second, third round grade on him coming in. I still do. Judkins passed him just slightly. I would say a faller was Cam Scattaboo solely because he didn't run. And he was one of a handful of guys that I just kept hearing, he's ducking it. He's ducking it. He doesn't want us to see what he runs. And that's going to stick with you until you run at your pro day. And if you run slow there, may God have mercy on your soul. You will fall. You could fall 2 rounds from where we think you would go right now. Obviously, Bayshell Tootin helped himself. That's another one that I think you have to be really careful. We all knew he was fast. There's nobody. He was on my list of 13 freaks to break the combine. By the way, go back and listen to that list. Shocking how accurate I was. Deontay Thornton, Byshell Tootin, Brashard Smith. James Pierce. Shamar Stewart. I don't even take credit for that one. If you didn't see that one, I don't know how to help you. Another guy that I think really helped himself, and it wasn't necessarily just his 40 time, it was everything that he did, was DJ Giddens, running back out of Kansas State. That kid's bigger than I thought he was. And the athleticism was out of this world. 4.43 in the 40, 1.53 10-yard split, almost a 40-inch vert at 39.5 and a 10-10 broad jump. That is insane. He has slid into that fringe. He might find a way into day two. And you watch the tape, it all makes sense. That broad jump makes so much sense because he is so electric in and out of cuts. By the way, if you don't know, that's why we do the broad jump. The broad jump and the vertical, I mean, it's cute that you have a 40-inch vert or whatever the case may be. We're trying to see how strong your legs are. Because especially in running backs, it's a huge one. There is almost no indicator that is better to show how successful a guy will be in the NFL than their broad and their vertical at running back. DJ Giddens definitely helped himself. There weren't a ton of others that I thought really did damage to themselves or hurt themselves. Ollie Gordon's pushing into that. I don't know where you go. 4.61. You just can't run a 4.61 at the combine. And then when we get the measurables, I mean, yeah, he's a big kid. Awesome. Your vert was 5 inches shorter than many of these other guys. I didn't hate the 10-yard split. It was a little slow, but it was not nearly as slow as his 40 time was. That was really my biggest takeaway from the running backs. One position group left, aside from the offensive line. Tight ends, I kept everything basically the same. The one that I really hemorrhaged was Gunnar Helm, and then he showed, that ankle looks gnarls Barkley. He twisted his ankle on the first run. So you got to understand, when you're in the building, I can't see that. So I knew that he had done something off the jump, and I thought maybe he just rolled it. This is not just a roll. I'm not sure he's even going to be ready to run at his pro day. So I'm not going to say that I didn't mentally chalk it up, but it does make way more sense that he ran a 4.95. So I kept Gunnar Helm he is in the 5th round for me. I didn't drop him as far as I thought I was going to. That was really about it for tight ends. I liked Terrence Ferguson beforehand. Tommy Fadone is the one that no one's talking about, and I think they should. That kid, when you watch him on tape, really shines through. And you didn't see it at Nebraska, but it's definitely there. In our YouTube chat, Dana R. asked how many of the, quote, hamstring issues at the combine were legitimate and how many were just people ducking the 40 until the pro day or altogether. Seems like we had more than usual. That's a problem about every single year. I have never heard a push to force guys to work out at the combine or just not show up as much as I heard it this week. And it was ridiculous. It seemed like every 5 seconds somebody was dropping out. Oh, hamstring tightness. By the way, just come up with something different. It's not the hamstring. Oh, I know you don't want to get into bones and joints and things like that, but still, it was ridiculous. It was more this year than it's been in the past. But it's a consistent issue every single year. Final offensive group is your offensive lineman. I thought a lot of guys really helped themselves. The medical on Josh Simmons was bigger than probably anything anybody did in a workout because it sounds like he's going to be just fine. And that's a big deal because the medical was the biggest knock on him beyond a shadow of a doubt. And now you get a clean medical that pushes him. I think he could go as high as the top 15. So a really good combine from Josh Simmons, even though he didn't actually do anything. Other guys that I think helped themselves, Armin Mimbu, running a 4.91. He was already screaming up the boards anyway. So he is definitely a riser for me. I think now you're looking at him probably, if he gets to 18, I will be shocked. And if he gets to 18, he will never make it past it. So Mimbu is definitely a riser at the combine for me. I thought Will Campbell's workout was elite. The problem is that his arm length is going to kill him because there are teams that just, they don't think he can be that guy. They think he's going to be shoehorned into guard, and that's going to be a problem forever. I still like Campbell. The athleticism at guard, now he's even more intriguing than he was before. So I didn't rail on Campbell. I still think he's really good. Ariante Ursery running a 5.01 as a house. That did him some favors. I think he could sneak into the back end of the first. I mean, the guy's 6'6", 331. And he ran a 5.01. The vert and the broad and all those things weren't particularly good. But that was a good workout from Ursery. Connerly, that went about how I thought it would. In terms of guys that hurt themselves, I think Tyler Booker just absolutely crucified himself because you run that slow, and basically everything in the workout was slow. How am I supposed to use you as a pull guard? You're not fast enough to get out in front of the play. How am I supposed to? So, like Miami, that's out of here. Tyler Booker, for me, would be not off the board entirely for Miami. There's no way I'm doing it the first. No way. And Stephen Tao, that name was Ariante Ursery, which is how he says it. I have a video of him doing it. I checked because it's not an easy name to pronounce. Wyatt Millum, I don't think did himself any favors. Anthony Belton, I didn't push him down much, if at all, because it kind of steered in line with what I saw on tape. That was the reason that he was a fourth, fifth round prospect for me. He's just not very athletic. And then finally, Kelvin Banks Jr., the arms being short. I heard a lot of talk about him being a guard, that would be unsettling to me. Joshua Gray from Oregon State and Eli Cox, I also think, helped themselves, as did Jackson Slater from Sacramento State. And those are really your risers and fallers on offense. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to talk about the defense. Not as many guys, but a lot bigger swings. You're in the Sportsocracy, brought to you by Ingles Markets, Parks Ford, Hendersonville, and Clarissa Sells WNC on ESPN Radio Asheville, 92.9, 880, and 1400. That's two. My phone rang right in the middle of that, and it completely threw me off. Okay. Got to talk about the defensive guys. Flying Scotsman asked about the tackle. I'm assuming you're talking about Emory Jones. I have him as a guard. I love that kid. Just absolutely love him. He was a dog at the Senior Bowl. He wanted to fight everybody. And I think he could play tackle. Red Sea put it in my head that he's a better guard, and then I saw it up close and personal. Now I'm evaluating him predominantly as a guard. One of the hard things of this day where things really start popping off with trade requests is my phone rings about 5,000 times. I have it right here in the chair, and it's very distracting. All right. Okay. Defensive risers and fallers. Oh. Got to save that last one and see where I am time-wise. Sometimes I get lost in a story and I either drop out too early or I drop out too late. Okay. That one was 12:23. That one was, oh, shit. I'm glad I did that. Andreas Pinckney said, I know Walter Nolan didn't help himself not working out of the combine. It didn't matter. Walter Nolan, short of coming in and flying, I don't think he could have been any more of a riser post Senior Bowl. And I don't think he was going to fly. Okay. David L., is it possible the Bengals go back to back defensive ends now that Hubbard retired? It's possible. I would say it's not incredibly likely. I thought they were going to be high on defensive ends anyway, but they do still have Miles Murphy out of Clemson that they drafted, and it was this brain trust. So that's usually a pretty good indicator that they will revert to that guy first. Oh, and we're starting with pre-draft visits. Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders, and Travis Hunter visiting the Cleveland Browns. It's an interesting first three. Pickney, nobody will ever be taken off somebody's board for not working out. Ever. You might be pushed down. Tet, we felt like you were ducking something. My question would be, what exactly is Walter Nolan ducking? Okay, so he runs slow. Who gives a shit? I mean, unless he runs a 6, which I'll be 100% honest with you, I've been right in front of the guy. He's not going to. Bench press, he probably wouldn't have done that anyway. Most of the higher end guys don't do it unless they're going to do something crazy. So yes, that's one of those things that people put out there. I don't know where it comes from. I wish I did, because it annoys the piss out of me. Like, if you're going to put out a fake rumor, at least make it be a rumor that is not so easy to debunk. All right. Alex has asked, is Christian Kirk the new star of wide receiver free agency, considering Godwin's coming off a leg injury? No. And I mean, I don't think so. I think Christian Kirk will have a market, but he was always going to have a market. Look, I mean, that's a guy that Jacksonville almost traded at the trade deadline. They just fucked up and let him play, and he got hurt. I mean, he was dealt to Pittsburgh. That deal was done, and then they had to unwind it. There's really no coming back from that. So you got a new brain trust, and I don't really think he fits. Liam Cohen likes a bigger slot, and Kirk really just doesn't give you anything other than over the top. So, I mean, do I think there will be teams interested? For sure. But I don't think it will be I don't necessarily think it'll be crazy. All right, so we're at 32 minutes. I got 15 minutes here. 12:23. Make sure my times are right. 23. That's 1. So 21. Okay, I got 15 minutes to talk about defensive risers and fallers. All right, here we go. Defensive combine fallers starts now.
Ain't no truth on the radio station. Somebody owes me an explanation. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up.
The Sportsocracy.
And I'm unapologetic.
Back here, ESPN Radio Asheville, the Sportsocracy. I'm at ESPN Draft Nerd, Jeremy Green. And this is the Sportsocracy. Find us on all the social medias at the Sportsocracy. I feel like I've said that word 7 times in the lead into this. We're talking combine risers and fallers. Guys that did themselves some favors, guys that didn't do themselves favors. And now we're to the defense, and I think the two most obvious, I'm just going to get them out of the way right now, Shamar Stewart and Nick Emmanwori. Yes, those workouts were out of this world. They were freaky athletic. I still have huge red flags with both. Emmanwori is probably the worst tackling big safety I've ever seen. But, man, he's fast. And, man, he can cover. And, man, he does a lot of stuff. And I do think there's a great chance he's past Malachi Starks. The tape on Starks is exponentially better to me, but he's not just freaky athletic. I don't think he hurt himself. I definitely don't think he is. I don't think he has fallen. I don't think he was ever as high to NFL guys as he was to us. So you get to this point and, oh, he's not going as high as I thought. Well, of course he's not, because he wasn't that high. Safeties and off-ball linebackers fall every single year. We have them rated as top 10 players. They go in the mid-teens and early 20s. So I don't think Malachi Starks hurt himself in any way. It's just he did get passed. And the 4-5 probably didn't do him any favors. But I don't think it killed him. That's about where I had him anyway. Rest of the safety class, I didn't see anybody in Indianapolis that I thought really did themselves. I don't think anybody moved up. I don't think anybody moved down. My safety rankings stayed exactly the same, minus Emmanwori. Other edge guys, James Pierce Jr. I swear to you, I'm going to have shirts made that say James Pierce is not a character red flag, and I'm just going to wear them every Monday until the draft. But I am so tired of hearing that because no one will cop to they're the one that said it, and it's weird. He's the biggest character red flag in the draft. That's the report I saw yesterday. You ever met Malachi Moore? Because I have. And if you're telling me he is that James Pierce is a bigger character red flag than him, you're out of your mind. Just straight up out of your mind. I think Pierce goes no lower than 16 to Arizona. I think it's his drop dead floor. I keep seeing him fall into the end of the first round. If there's one that's going to do that, it's Mike Green. He didn't work out here. He did come here to Indianapolis to get in front of the accusations about him, and that is what they are. They're accusations. Nobody can find anything on record. You now know what I know. So I'm not going riser or faller on Mike Green. It is something to know, though. Other guys that helped themselves, I really liked Fadil Diggs. And I thought I was higher on him than other people until I got around other scouts, and basically they were in the same place I was. So good chance that he ends up going higher than we thought. I have him in round 4 as it sits, along with another guy that I thought really helped himself. Just showing how athletic and shifty he is. It's Tyler Barron from Miami. I thought both of their workouts were very fluid, very consistent. And you go back and watch the tape and it makes sense. And maybe they were just miscast. Maybe that's why they weren't as ungodly productive what you're really looking for, because both of them miss those metrics. But I do think they help themselves. A player that I have to talk about because I have seen very, very few workouts like that. Landon Jackson. And this is a theory that I have determined about your tape, your postseason, and whether that be bowl games, playoff games, Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and then the Combine. For me, those are 3 layers of a prospect. The tape is 75+% of my evaluation on a guy. The tape on Landon Jackson's really, really good. I had him in the first round of my first mock draft, and I felt pretty solid about it. I liked him with Washington. I liked him with Detroit. It just made sense. Then he went to the Senior Bowl, and he just didn't jump out to me. And I thought that was a situation that was really kind of earmarked for him. He wasn't bad per se. It was just, it's almost better to be bad, high effort, than to be invisible. He was invisible. I forgot he was there for an entire day. Bill Workman and I came back and we were exchanging notes from the day of practices. He mentioned Landon Jackson, and I went, oh, yeah, he is here. He had done absolutely nothing that jumped off enough for me to even acknowledge him. That's dangerous. Then he came to the Combine, and he was absolutely out of this world good. Measured 6'6" and some change. Arm length is good. It's over 33 inches. 4'6", 40 is good. I mean, I'm not jumping up and down about it, but for as big as he is, it's solid. 40.5-inch vert, 10.9 broad jump. That is incredible explosion for a guy that's pushing 6'7". If we were drafting a all-combine basketball team, Landon Jackson would be the second pick behind Shamar Stewart. I think he did himself some favors. I now feel really confident in saying he's going to go in the top 40. I don't know if he snuck back into the first round, but he definitely did himself some favors. I want to touch really quick before I move off of edge rushers on Princely Amon Malayan. His 40 time was not good, but then I went back and watched it. His split was elite. He had a 1.62 10-yard split, 38-inch vert, 10.6 broad jump. All of that was solid. So now I'm almost to a point of I don't think he hurt himself as badly as I thought he did. He's still in round 2 for me, mid round 2. But I did want to correct something that I'd said. I saw the 40 time. I actually saw him run it. I just didn't see the split. It's easy to do. Freedom of information is not necessarily free-flowing, especially with official times. Get into defensive tackles. My big winner was Aeneas Peebles. I just absolutely love that kid. I think he is going to come into the NFL as a top 100 pick and be one of those guys that we just go, how did he not go higher? Okay, so there are parts of the measurables that you're not in love with. He's short. He has short arms. But he's so productive, and he's been productive everywhere he's been. I love the kid, and I couldn't really find anybody else that didn't. Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, I was higher on him than most people, and it was almost exclusively because I thought he was freakishly athletic. He came to the combine, he showed that. Close to 6'5", 276 pounds, runs a 4.86, which was one of the fastest times of defensive tackles, and he had a 36-inch vert. That's not enough to get you drafted per se. I had a draftable grade. I had him as one of my top 10 defensive tackles at his individual position. I break those down a little bit harder than everybody else does. And a lot of people told me I was too high on him. The workout tells me that I wasn't. Darius Alexander had a great workout. CJ West did as well. I kept those guys about where they are. Darius Alexander is older. I mean, he's going to be 25 years old before he plays a game in the NFL. What I said, my line about him over the weekend was he is 4 months older than Javonte Williams, who's already played through a rookie deal and is going through free agency. CJ West, the reason I didn't move him up any further is he had short arms, and he is a shorter guy. I did not love the workout from Joshua Farmer. I never pushed him up after the Senior Bowl. Everybody else did. I didn't. I didn't push him down after the workout. Everybody else did. I didn't. Hey, guess what? We all wound up in about the same place. If you don't overreact to things, it's shocking how little you actually have to move your board. There are certain guys on my draft big board that have been in the exact same spot in that spreadsheet since summer scouting. Because you just keep confirming what I already knew. Nothing ever jumped out. There were never any red flags. You are just where you were. But a player I do need to talk about, Zeke Biggers. He had an appendectomy 2 weeks before the Shrine Bowl. Well, I just found this out yesterday. He had an appendectomy before the Shrine Bowl. His doctors told him, well, I mean, yeah, you can go compete there, but it's kind of risky, and it's going to be hard for you because it's going to be really painful. Yeah, he went to the Shrine Bowl. He was one of the 5 best players there. Then he came to the Combine and had, I thought, a really good workout. Just a big kid. I think he's super raw. But there's enough there that I do have a draftable grade on him at over 6'5", 320 pounds. Salisbury kid. He's from here in North Carolina. Went to Georgia Tech. That was really it. Ty Robinson, I've talked about him. I knew he was freakishly athletic. I'm just not sure he's any good. I'm also not sure what position he plays. Get into the linebackers. Jahad Campbell helped himself running really solidly. Demetrius Knight stays where he was. The big losers to me were Jeffrey Bassa. I thought you were freak athletic at the Senior Bowl. Then you came here and you ran slow. 4.63 is slow for an off-ball linebacker, especially modern day, especially when you're small to begin with. I was a little disappointed by that. I didn't move him much. I did slide Jahad Campbell in front of him in terms of I had Bassa ahead of Campbell. Now I'm evaluating Campbell more as an edge than an actual linebacker. Bassa is still a guy that I would feel comfortable back end of 2, beginning of 3. He's one of the he plays better on the field than he does in a workout, very obviously. Shined at the Senior Bowl, just didn't work out well. And Pooh Paul, Chris Paul Jr., we're going to talk about him a ton because he is the exact opposite of Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart came and blew out the Combine, and everything there was great. But the measurables were blew out the Senior Bowl, excuse me. Then came to the Combine, all the measurables are terrible. He has sub 30-inch arms. He's only 222 pounds, and he was short. And then he didn't run well. But the production is there. And I still really like him. Pigs 76 said Darius Alexander and Gray Zabel should go to the same team. That would be a team that did really well in my grades when they came out later. Because if you get both of those guys, well, that means you got one in the first and one in the second, and I'm perfectly good with that. Andreas Pinckney, TJ Sanders, and CJ West. I don't know what they did, but they need to get more love. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I have a first-round grade on TJ Sanders. CJ West is short, and Bill Polian was the most famous for this, of you had to fit in a box, and if you didn't fit in a box, you weren't even on the board. And it was all about bend and different drills at the Combine and your shuttle and your splits. They had to fall into a certain range because those were, to him, Colts guys. If you didn't, you weren't on the board. That's what I think happens to CJ West, is that there are certain teams that will not draft defensive tackles that have arms that are that short or that they are that short. And so he just gets pushed down. TJ Sanders, I have no idea. Anybody that doesn't see it with him, I got nothing for you. Guadalupe in our YouTube chat. Always appreciate seeing new names. Talking about Cody Simon. I love Cody Simon. He's way higher on my list than the vast majority, I would say, of drafters and analysts and guys like that. He's just always around the ball. Like anytime you watch Ohio State tape, he is always around the ball. And I like that. Real quick before we have to dip out for a commercial break, before the second hour of this here program. Talking about corners. I didn't jump up and down. I know Maxwell Hairston ran fast, and I get it. Somebody's going to take him too high. I went back and watched the tape. It's not there for me. He's a second, third round corner that's going to go way higher than that, so I don't like the chances that I would wind up with him. Really liked what I saw out of Jahdae Barron. Darian Porter, he was a freak. It didn't change anything for me. I expected him to do that. Trey Amos, liked him. Jacob Parrish, smaller corner out of Kansas State. I think he's a bulldog. You're going to hear me say that name no less than 5,000 times across the radio show and YouTube over the next handful of weeks. And Caleb Ransaw, I was shocked he ran with the corners instead of the safeties. That caught me very off guard. Guys that I think hurt themselves to a point. Kobe Bryant, I think he hurt himself a little bit, not much. Zy Alexander, I was shocked he ran that slow. And Quincy Riley, he was on my freaks that could blow out the combine list, and his workout was average at best. And that's probably me being generous. That puts a pin in radio content, radio coverage of the 2025 Senior Bowl. We thank our friends, our partners, Parks Ford of Hendersonville. They equipped us with a gigantic, beautiful Ford F-250 Super Duty. Got it wrapped by Fast Signs of Asheville. And it allows us to carry all of our equipment. It gets us everywhere safely. It's a beautiful, beautiful truck, and it's so comfortable. I'm a giant guy, and I don't like traveling. I really hate driving because after about hour 5 of a trip, I start to get very uncomfortable. In that truck, I have not done that in any of our events. It is unbelievable how comfortable the seats are, how comfortable it is to drive for long periods of time. We've taken it to New Orleans. We've taken it to Atlanta multiple times, and I just took it to Indianapolis. It is my favorite truck I've ever had, and I want it to be mine forever and ever. Go see our friends at Parks Ford of Hendersonville to get one of your own. Clarissa Sells WNC.com, your one stop for all things real estate in the mountains of Western North Carolina. And Ingles Markets, low prices, love the savings. And with Ingles, you can check them out this weekend. They're all over the 2025 Ingles SoCon Basketball Championship, Southern Conference Basketball Championships. We're going to crown a men's and women's champion this week in Asheville. I will be there Monday, 5 to 7. We'll be doing a remote there. Come by and say hi. I will also be there all weekend long, just kind of popping in and out to check out the basketball because I do love basketball and I love it in person. Hour 1, Sportsocracy in the books. Hour 2 coming your way next, right here on ESPN Radio Asheville, 92.9, 880, and 1400. Whew. There's a lot of reads there at one time. Just loaded them all together. Screw it. We'll do it live. Oh, we have a button. We have a button. I have a button. Sir Jimothy, just supporting Sir Jimothy on the wrong account. Wheels for Meals, WNC.com. And James, I did see your message. I'm not going to lie, by the time I saw it last night, it was late, and I didn't know if you were one of those people that kept your ringer on. So I will get back with you about what you and I were discussing as soon as this live is over. Okay, we're going to talk about big moves in the NFL today. Let's check the old Twitter box and see if anybody else has re-signed anybody or anything like that. $485% raise for Zach Bond. I need one of those. I need one of those badly. Oh, I still got to get a button for It's not the one I meant to click, but I did love Mario Brothers when I was a child. And he said there's no alerts after 10 p.m. unless you call, but I do appreciate the thought. Yeah, I live by the old sales rule of I'll never call you or text you before 8 o'clock, and I'll never do it after 8 o'clock. Okay. Get a little, gotta wet my whistle here. Bangus in our YouTube comments said, hey, Jeremy, are you going to release another mock after free agency? I'll do you one better. I'm getting ready to release team by team A+ mocks before free agency. And I'm going to factor in your free agency dollars and things like that. Those will be coming out starting, let's see, today's Wednesday, tomorrow. And then I will do another one after free agency, yes. And what round do you have Jacob Parrish in? He is my number one slot corner, unless you consider Jahdae Barron a slot, which I kind of do, but not completely. He's kind of a hybrid corner slot safety. I have Jacob Parrish in the 3rd round. Now, I will admit, he is low in my 3rd round grades. He is in the 90s, but I do have him in the 3rd round. I love that kid. I absolutely love that kid. And I'm not going to lie to you, I had slept on him. Connor Rogers is who got me to watch the tape on him. And I watched it, and I went, how the hell did I miss this guy? Oh, I see. Because he wound up in so I have all the measurables and things in the spreadsheet and all that. His RAS score as an outside corner was so bad that I just never rose him. I slid him over to slot, and weird. All that shit went away, and we're good. We're good. Timothy said, what do you mean did love Mario? I don't play as many video games now as I would like to, mainly because I live in this chair. But I do love I heard the Nintendo 64 is being re-released in 4K. Talk about that could be a great way to spend my very quiet summer. Because by God, as soon as this draft is over, I'm going to release grades. We're going to talk about the draft for about a week, and then my ass is going to disappear. And when I say disappear, I mean, you ain't going to see hide or hair of me. You will have to spray my cologne to even know I was in a room for about 2 months. Vegas asked, does he have a chance for the Jets in the 3rd? I don't think so, because they still have Michael Carter the 2nd. And that's super hat on a hat. And that is one of the shitty things for me of doing all the evaluations is that I evaluate these guys. I absolutely love them. And then I look at the Jets roster and go, there is no chance they're drafting that guy. No, if I had to bet on a team for Parrish, who would that be? Cincinnati was the first one I thought of. Because they don't seem inclined to move Dax Hill on the inside. And that is a little unsettling to me because I think it would be better there. So if they kept him on the outside, I would like Parrish in the slot there. I also would like him in Indianapolis with Lou Anarumo. Ooh, now that I think about it, I like that even better. I love him as a slot guy. I struggle to believe the Jets would use capital for another slot corner when they've already got one that they're paying. It's unfortunate, but it happens every year. Just a guy that you go, damn it. Any other year, I would have loved him in the 3rd round. Okay. For those of you that are just tuning in, we are recording the ESPN radio show for tomorrow. Have to do this one more time till Tank gets back. And then Friday, we have signed a deal with our friends at Walk the Mock. They are giving a 20% discount either on the year, which is what I did. It's $24. And you can walk the mock and real-time mock with people. Hell, you might even wind up real-time mocking with me because I've been doing that a lot. I get a lot from that just to see where people's brains go. You will also be able to download my rankings on Walk the Mock by Friday. I have a code, and all you have to do is put that code in, and you'll be able to upload my rankings. Evan Doyle said we have a blockbuster signing. Alex Kappa is signing with the Las Vegas Raiders. Where the hell is Alex Kappa going to play for the Raiders? Well, it's not going to be for Parham. It's not going to be for Jackson Powers Johnson. They haven't, I swear to God, I think they have another guard, though. And by the way, I don't hate that signing. At that rate, I don't hate that at all. He was really bad in Cincinnati, but you understand, he was really bad around him, too. God, PFF is on their shit. They already have Alex Kappa in for the Raiders. 30 years old. That's a John Spytek special because he was in Tampa Bay when they drafted him. Doyle said they are not prepared for how bad he's going to be. If you don't want to invest big money, I get it. I mean, look, guard's not, I don't have free agency pulled up in front of me. Let me take a gander and look at it before I speak out of turn here. You've already got Thuney and Jackson off the board. I'm not fond of Sheriff. James Daniels is going to be expensive. I mean, I get it. With how much they've invested, I don't hate it. I did have them signing Tevin Jenkins, though. So I guess that unwinds that. Back to the old drawing board. Tuesday, Tank and I will be giving our predictions for where every major free agent signs. Hopefully we haven't had that leaky bullshit where we figure out or where we've already found out where these guys go because we're in legal tampering. If we have, we'll sit around and make fun of each other for 3 hours. Him for running my wife's gas out of car and car out of gas. Holy shit. I am tired. And impaling his foot and him for all the dumb shit I've said in the last 11 days. Okay. Let's talk some moves. All right, I'm going to have to play a couple songs here because I got to link up with one of our sponsors. Give me just a minute and we will get back to content here momentarily.
How's the weather up there on the high horse that you fed with your daddy's money? How's it feel to be fake as a motherfucker? Hey, let me tell you something. They don't give a damn when the money's gone, when the people in the stands don't sing along. Cause you know you ain't the man that's behind the song, thinking it'll work, but it won't. Ain't no truth on the radio station. Somebody owes me an explanation. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up. Anything they ask you, do it. Well, I know the ringer, I've been drugged to hell and back, been through it. Your time's tick-tock and I said, and I'm unapologetic. Cancel, yeah, you can try. You can't cancel what's been tonight. I ain't been handed shit, no silver spoon inheritance. Tired of trying to be what other people want me to be. And now you get what you see. Now you get what you say. I get knocked down, I get back up. Anything they ask you, do it. Well, I know to hell and back, been through it. Your time's tick-tock and I said, and I'm
Okay, sorry about that. I was scheduling a maintenance on the vehicle and getting everything set up for Friday. As I was, I don't remember exactly where I was. The walk the mock will be Friday. We will do that in the noon window. So keep that in mind. We will be doing that on Friday. Full on 7-round mock draft. We're doing 1 minute rounds this time, or 1 minute picks this time. We did 2 the last time we did this, and I think the draft took 6 hours. So it may even do 30 seconds. So you'll have to stay on your toes. Use that link pinned in the chat for that. That's our promo code our promo code is NFL Draft Net, all caps. And that gets you 20% off either your first month or your first year subscription with Walk the Mock. It's the best mock draft website that we have, and I absolutely love it. It's a fantastic server. All right, locking in here on news of the day. So we're going to talk about Zach Bond. We're going to talk about Joe Thuney. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff right here. Back in the Sportsocracy, ESPN Radio Asheville for Hour 2, 92.9, 880, and 1400, brought to you, as always, by Ingles Markets. And we're talking about actions around the NFL. We got a lot of movement. Free agency starts in just a few days. League year starts in a few days, and we've already got rumblings. We've already got some re-signings. We got some faces in new places. It is going to get so crazy on Tuesday. In the last day of the legal tampering period, and then you have Wednesday when everything drinking from a fire hose. I love the offseason of the NFL. The offseason of the NFL is better than the end season of every other sport, and it's not even close. I would rather talk free agency signings in the NFL than watch a game of the World Series or a game of the NBA. I had tickets to an NBA game that were given to me, and I didn't use them while I was in Indianapolis, and I still feel bad about that. But good seats, didn't use them. My bad. We're talking signings and re-signings and different things that have happened around the NFL. Yesterday, Zach Bond. He is returning to the Philadelphia Eagles. In other breaking news, it's Thursday, water's wet, and the sky's blue. 3 years, $51 million. $34 million guaranteed for the first-team All-Pro linebacker. It's a big deviation for Howie Roseman. He has absolutely refused to pay off-ball linebackers for as long as I can remember. But Bond was just so unbelievably good. Highest-rated linebacker in the NFL, according to PFF, after 4 very middling years in New Orleans. Look, this is a guy that I really liked coming out of Wisconsin. I never figured out why exactly he didn't find a role in New Orleans. But, man, he went to Philadelphia and was absolutely out of this world. Philadelphia is a very interesting team in free agency because it's hard to figure out exactly where they're going to allocate their dollars. So they have extended Saquon Barkley. They've re-signed Zach Bond, and I'm not sure that doesn't mean that everybody else gets out the door. But when you draft the way Philadelphia does, it's fine. This is not a team that drafts off-ball linebackers well. All right, Nakobe Dean, yep, he was great. Coming off an injury, he'll be fine. That's your 2 linebackers in nickel sets. That's your 2 linebackers in base sets, as a matter of fact. Then you get to Josh Sweat. He's going to get a bag. And when I say a bag, I mean a bag. We're talking $20+ million a year. And if I'm being honest, I don't really think he's worth that. He's a really good player. I have no qualms with Josh Sweat. This just strikes me as this is a player that Howie Roseman lets walk out the door. Because if you look at what he has done over his career with the Philadelphia Eagles, last year he was the 28th best edge in the league. That's good. I don't have a problem with that. Is that worth 20 some odd million dollars? Probably not. Is somebody going to give that to him? Absolutely. The PFF projection on Josh Sweat is 3 years, $18 million average per year, $32.5 million guaranteed. And I mean, this is a guy that's never been a top 10 edge in the league. That's hard for me to wrap my brain around. He was 36 last year, 56 the year before, and 12, according to PFF, in 2022. Really good, really solid. 28 years old. I'm afraid you're paying for past production because you probably only have a year or two on this deal, and I think it's going to be longer and for more. I think you're looking closer 4 years. I'll say 4 years, $22 million. I think he gets into that 88 and 90 range. And you're going to be paying the guy till he's 32 years old. I don't love it, but you have so many teams that have cap space, and there are so few guys. The highest end guys are just not really there. T. Higgins was my favorite player on the market. That was my number one with a bullet. Franchised. Trey Smith was my number 2. Franchised. Javon Holland, he's going to hit the market and somebody's going to give him a boatload of money. Could easily see that being in the $100 million range. 5 years. Because he's still just 25 years old. Chris Godwin's coming off an injury. Khalil Mack's an older guy. DJ Reed's scheme specific. Amari Cooper was terrible with the Buffalo Bills. And he's over 30. Ronnie Stanley's over 30. Has had injury issues for years. There's just not a ton of guys to spend money on, and these are the years that you see guys get stupid deals that hamstring franchises for years. And I'm worried about that. Now you look at Philadelphia and how they've built this roster out. Josh Sweat is an easily replaceable piece for them. In terms of edge rushers currently on this roster, obviously you have Nolan Smith. You have Jalix Hunt. It's 2 really good young players. They also have KJ Henry, who I still believe very highly in, even though he's bounced around the league a little bit. You also still have Bryce Huff that you have to try to get something out of. So I don't really see a way that Josh Sweat gets re-signed. You look at the other big free agent they have, Milton Williams. They already have Jordan Davis. They already have Jalen Carter. They already have Moro Ojomo. They also have Byron Young, the wrong one that the Raiders drafted. You're fine. You don't really have to replace him, and if you do, you can do it in the draft. And I feel the same way about Mekhi Becton. You took Tyler Steen a handful of years ago. You still got Darian Kennard, who I always thought could play on the inside. And you've got Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. Most teams would kill for that. You're fine. This is how a team like Philadelphia stays good forever, because you're replacing guys a year in advance. Philadelphia is practically the easiest team in the NFL to figure out the guys that they're going to re-sign, the guys that they aren't, because you can look at what they do in the draft, and they're planning 1, 2, 3 years in advance. Guys are going to hit their prime as other guys are moving out of their prime. I'll let somebody else pay you for non-prime years. Milton Williams, I like a lot. I have said I think Arizona would be wise if they're going to spend big, as I've been told that they're going to. That's where I'm allocating my dollars. He's just 26 years old. He's been consistently a top 15 to 20 interior defensive lineman in this league. And you saw last year how good he can be. But Philadelphia doesn't have there's not a lot of positions they don't draft well at. And something that I swear to you, I'm going to write a book on this. In terms of being a GM in the NFL, you have to have self-awareness. And Howie Roseman does this better than practically anybody in the league. Look around at what you don't do well. Be honest with yourself. All right, I do this in my everyday life. I don't remember things particularly well. So what do? I either write them down or I run it through my wife, because my wife remembers what she wore to work 9 months ago on a Tuesday. It's one of the more impressive things I've ever seen. It's not who I am. So you look at what Philadelphia has done over the years. This past year, Quinyon Mitchell, home run. Cooper DeJean, home run. What'd they do this offseason? That was 1 year ago. What'd they do this offseason? Release Darius Slay, release James Bradbury. Don't need them. Year ago, you took Jalen Carter. Or 2 years ago, you took Jalen Carter, 2023. You knew Milton Williams was coming up. You're already replacing a guy that at the time was 24 years old. Nolan Smith took him at the end of the first round. Tyler Steen, home run. Sidney Brown, Keely Ringo, throw a dart at a board. Tanner McKee. Don't be shocked if Tanner McKee is not a Philadelphia Eagle when we start next year, and he's getting a shot at a starting job somewhere else. Heard that around Indianapolis as well. 2022 took Jordan Davis. That hasn't gone quite as well, but he's still a solid player. Took Cam Jurgens. Jason Kelsey was on, is at the end. Played guard for a year, slid over to center. Nakobe Dean. Still will never understand how he wound up at 83. Oh, he had a knee thing. Has that really been a big deal? When he's been on the field, he's been great. Injuries, okay, that's why you pushed him down. So be it. Year before that, you took Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, Milton Williams. It's just home run after home run after home run after home run. Look where their misses are. Jalen Rager, Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell. You got Devontae Smith, but it's very obvious that your weaknesses are drafting wide receivers, drafting running backs, drafting linebackers. This is where Howie Roseman evolved. A few years ago, Philadelphia was ready to run him out of town. He evolved. I don't draft linebackers well. So I got one that had maybe injury issues. Nobody really worried about the talent. Injury issues. Grab him up. Great value in the third round. Signed Zach Bond. Very low risk deal. Came into camp. It was super obvious, super early that nailed one here. Running back. We don't do that well. Go sign Saquon Barkley. I already know exactly what he is. Oh, I got to spend free agency dollars on a running back. Who cares? Do you realize how many players they have on rookie deals? It is mind-boggling how much of this roster makes little to no money. And you can do that. We don't nail receivers. We took Jalen Rager over Justin Jefferson. Cool. Go trade for A.J. Brown. Tennessee wants him out of town. He wants out of town. Okay, I'll go get him. This is what good GMs do. You know what bad GMs do? They keep circling the wagons trying to do the same thing over and over again, and they're shocked when the results keep being the same thing. That's what I said about the Cleveland Browns. Hey, Cleveland, how many quarterbacks do you have to draft before you figure out we're not good at this? I get it. You took a swing on Deshaun Watson. Your swing was dumb. You gave a guy who had not played in 2 full years, basically, a deal while he was facing lawsuits for sexual assault that was fully guaranteed. Would Howie Roseman do that? No. Would Eric DaCosta do that? No. Eric DaCosta, another good example of this. Hey, I'm really inconsistent with edge rushers. Goes and signs Kyle Van Noy, who's played in this scheme. I know exactly what he is. Yeah, I have 2 young guys. That has been varying degrees of success. You know who's been really consistent? Kyle Van Noy. You know who they make sure he's re-signed? Kyle Van Noy. Because I don't do that particularly well. Every team in the NFL has one of these things. Every team drafts something really, really well. I'm a lifelong New York Jet fan. Hey, you know what they draft well? Corners. They sign them well, too. You know what they don't draft well? Safeties. You know what else they don't draft well? Quarterbacks. You know what else they don't draft well? Wide receivers. And before you give me Garrett Wilson, I can give you a graveyard of Devin Smiths and Stephen Hills. You want to know what makes good teams good? Is that they know. They know what they do well. They know what they don't do well. And they can adjust to that. You want a good example of that? Look at Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney's headed to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick, and I have seen people gnashing their teeth going, oh, Lord, what is Kansas City going to do? We saw that their offensive line wasn't particularly good against Philadelphia. They got run through like a hot knife through butter, and that's why they lost the Super Bowl. Why would you move off your best offensive lineman? Because you know. Because you know exactly what's getting ready to happen. You know that Joe Thuney is older. You know that the drop off a cliff is coming. You've probably already seen it if I had a wager. The play stayed fine. We kicked him out to left tackle. Hides a lot because he's playing a position that he's not used to and he's not particularly good at. You know who plays on the inside of Joe Thuney? Creed Humphrey, a guy that I had in my top 50 overall. They took him at the end of the third round. Stud. The other guard, guy that they just franchised was a 5th or 6th round pick. I can't remember which one. Loved him. I had him in my top 100. Went to the combine. Oh, the medical's not good. That's okay. We'll do it again. And I go ahead and tell you, they're going to do it again. They're going to draft a guard in this class. I can't tell you which one it is. But that's why you're able to move off a guy like Joe Thuney. That's why Kansas City stays good forever. That's why Philadelphia's been good forever. Because you don't just chase your tail. You don't just chase bad deals. When you have a stud, you make sure he gets re-signed. Especially if you don't have anybody to replace him. That's why I have not one time going into this free agency period have I had Zach Bond on a free agency list. Because I knew. I don't know if it's 3 days before it starts. I don't know if it's 3 months before it starts. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's no shot that he plays his next snap for anybody other than the Philadelphia Eagles. Because they have no one to replace him, and they've telegraphed this entire thing. That's how it's going to go. And that is how it went. That's also why they re-signed Saquon Barkley. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But in the draft, you better keep sharpening the sword. I get people that rail on me for this every single year. They watch their mock draft and they go, oh, why would we do that? We already have blank. Yeah, how old is blank? Invariably, that answer's 30, 31, 32 years old. Because in this mock draft, I'm giving you credit for probably being smarter than your brain trust is in some instances. That you see the problem coming and you try to get in front of it instead of being reactionary. And good on the Chicago Bears. Do I think Joe Thuney's an elite all-pro guard at this point? No. Do I think he's better than the vast majority of the guys that you could either draft or sign in a one-year vacuum? Absolutely, I do. I think the same thing about Jonah Jackson. You have an offensive-minded head coach that's coming into this situation. By the way, 2 of the best moves the Chicago Bears have made in the last 10 years. Even knowing what I know about Thuney and knowing what I know about Jonah Jackson, coming off an injury-plagued year. But if they're both healthy, that's the best guard tandem I could have. I have an offensive-minded head coach that wants to come in here and run the damn ball. It's pretty solid. It's reactionary, and you're paying high-end value, high-end compensation for a guy that's probably not that guy anymore. Did you have a better solution? Are you good at drafting guards? No. I tell people all the time, this is not rocket surgery. There's a reason that I'm decently okay at this. I'm not the smartest guy you'll ever meet in your life. Building a team like this is not particularly hard. Finding quarterbacks, that's hard. Being a doctor, that's hard. Being a lawyer, that's hard. You got to remember a lot of things that are very myopic. Building an NFL football team, that's not hard. Listen to your coaches, listen to your scouts, and have some self-awareness. Howie Roseman does it better than anybody. And that's why Philadelphia is your reigning Super Bowl champions. I'm Jeremy Green. You can find me on Twitter at ESPN Draft Nerds. You can find us on all the social medias at The Sportsocracy. This is ESPN Radio Asheville, 92.9, 880 and 1400. After this quick break, we'll be back talking free agency. A few more moves to talk about, and we're going to preview a couple positions, players that could be impacts. Hey, who is the next Zach Bond? We'll tell you next, right here in the Sportsocracy on ESPN Radio Asheville. Oh. Bangus said the Patriots will stupidly spend on most of these players, and as a Jet fan, I'm here for it. They're going to spend a lot of money. I'm not real sure who they're going to spend a lot of money on, but they're going to spend a lot of money. Notorious B.I.G. also said that's why it makes 0 sense for the Saints to take Genty at 9. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Am I telling you I don't like the fit? No. Am I also telling you that historically they've shown an ability to actually find guys that can run the ball? Yep. I'm going to write a book on that one day. This is what your team does well, and this is what they do shitty, and this is why you didn't win Super Bowls in these years. I say I'm going to write a book. Oh, yeah, like I have so much time. Say I'm going to do a lot of shit. I'm not going to do a lot of shit. I'm going to do a lot of this. Gambit said, hang in there, Jeremy. It's almost done. We're halfway done right now. And I won't do all of this live. I'll probably do the next 2 segments, and then I'll dip out. Alex S. said the mullet king needs a Thai massage and a hit of meth to recover from the bad chairs of Indianapolis. Whew. We had some bad chairs in Indy. Between those stadium seats and the chairs in our living room, oh my God. Those were made by people who hate asses, and they want to inflict as much pain on them as humanly possible. Somebody at one point said, would the chairs be more comfortable if you turned them upside down? I'm not going to tell you they wouldn't have been. Oh. Price said, while I agree, Genty may not be the smartest pick at 9, it's also true he'd be our best player in 2025. This roster is that bad. But see, that's the point. You don't want to be good this year. You don't. You want to be bad. Be super bad. Hell, play Spencer Rattler. Who gives a shit? Go 4-13. Yeah, that year sucks. It sucks. But God, if there's a quarterback in this next class, ugh. Damn it. Are the chairs in Lucas Oil the reason Jim Irsay does all the drugs he does? I'm going to go out on a limb and say his chairs are probably much more comfortable than the ones in the stadium. David L., could you guys pull over the casting couch to sit on? I'm not going to lie to you. I have looked at this office backwards and forwards trying to find ways to have a more comfortable chair to sit in. I think the solution is I put a chair over in this corner. The problem is the window. The window is – natural light is not our friend. But I would love to do that. Just have a Barca lounger over there. I'd just sit in and do the radio show. The only problem is I'd fall asleep about once a show. But I would like to do that. Andreas Pinckney said the Saints are crap at drafting edge outside of Cam Jordan. I would agree. And then he said the Saints need to be bad for the next 2 years, in my opinion. We're dying slowly. If we turn into the suck, we can get out of this quickly if we're smart. Exactly. That's just, I mean, look, the reason I'm so sympathetic to this is I watched the Jets do it for years. Hey, are we actually a threat to anybody? No. Are we going to keep spending free agency dollars? Abso-fucking-lutely. Let's go get C.J. Mosley for $1 billion. Meanwhile, our best linebacker was a third-round pick we got off the trash heap from Jacksonville. And a fifth-round pick that we didn't play for, God, 2 or 3 years. Who now we're going to let walk probably to San Francisco and be the next awesome badass linebacker that they have there. He'll replace Dre Greenlaw, and then I'll just sit and seethe for a year. Oh, Robert Saleh stole about the only player he ever found for us. Safety from friggin' Auburn. There's too short to really play linebacker. Man, he fits in that system. Game of Fan said, get some of those giant beanbag chairs. Literally the most comfortable chair ever. Don't at me. I can't tell you you're wrong. My fat ass can't get out of them. That's the biggest problem of those, is that they are damn near impossible to get out of. Alex S. said Frankie Luvu was a nice thing to leave MetLife. Yeah, he left MetLife because Robert Saleh swore he couldn't play his defense. I'm still bitter about David Harris walking. I am too. I love David Harris. God, I loved him when we drafted him. That was one of the only times as a Jet fan that we made a pick and I went, fuck yes. Chiefs Nation, what's the over-under we take Gray Zabel? Oh, God. So Gray Zabel is that's a weird one for me. I would like that. I think a lot of teams are evaluating him at center. And that's why I heard in Indy that I was too high on him. He would be the best center in this class by a lot. And that might be where that's coming from. I actually think it's more likely that you have one of those guys fall in your lap. Kelvin Banks is falling hard. Hard. I'm not sure I get it either. Alex S. said my breathing reminds him of his granddad eating on any holiday. This mic picks up fucking everything. It's about the most sensitive mic I've ever had. This mic is more sensitive than the one we have in the studio. And I do not know how to turn it down. I notice it too. There's just nothing I can do about it. When it's a real bitch is when I'm recording commercials. I do a handful of segments that are pre-recorded. Jesus, I have to cut out every breath. And this thing picks up every time I think about breathing. It's a bitch. But I get to do it from my house, which I'm a big fan of. Dana R. said Booker's limited to a gap scheme, limited to gap scheme teams, which didn't help him. I agree. I don't think he can do shit else. Notorious B.I.G. Mykel Williams should be falling. He is. I've been saying for 4 months he's the Wish version of Shamar Stewart. I can't tell you you're wrong there. The problem with Mykel Williams is he reminds me too much of Derek Barnett. He's fine. He's been a player in this league for an extended period of time. It's just what are you actually getting? I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be a pass rusher. And I get it. He's long, he's lean, and people think, oh, he'll go to the NFL and be a better pass rusher. No, he won't. No, he won't. Pickney said, remember when the world was mocking him to the Saints? That was funny. I never did. Somebody pointed out that I was the first one to say Tyler Warren, and now you seem to be seeing it everywhere. That happens a lot. I thought it was a coincidence for the longest time, and then it was like the same people that I would say something, about a week later they were putting out the same shit. Alex says, I have no idea why people are still high on Mykel Williams. I don't get it. I've never gotten it. I probably never will get it. I think he is he's a really more athletic version of Derek Barnett. That's it. Oh, I can't say anything about that name, Alex. We work for the same four-letter acronym. But I can think it because y'all can't read my thoughts. Okay. I'm trying to get my brain right to finish this out. Hey, on the bright side, 90 days since I've had a cigarette. I did the math. 90 days today since I've had a cigarette of any kind. Which I think is the longest I've gone since I was 15 years old. Oh, shit. David can read my mind. He said, you want a sweet tea and a nap? Yep, that's exactly right. I do. Ooh, sweet tea would be good. God, like one of those Bojangles, like they put 4 pounds of sugar in that shit. Ugh. Oh, God, that means David L. knows what I just thought about Jordan Reed. Oh, that's not good. I promise that word was not douche. It was louche. He is a louche. It's French for nice guy, nice feller. Alex says, I did not do the Zen. I can't wrap my brain around the Zen thing. I know guys that do it. I just couldn't do it. Look, I use these. That's it. That's all I can do. And these die, and oh boy. I also tried to do a 0 nicotine on this. I do the lowest nicotine you can buy. I have to order these damn things. And I went 0 nicotine, bad call. And I knew it in 2 hours. Uh-oh. No nicotine, bad. Little nicotine, okay. All right. Let's see if there's any more any more news has broken in the last little bit. Joel Bitonio coming back to the Cleveland Browns. All right, we're going to do DK Metcalf here. Let's see. Let me answer these 2 questions before we start back. Dana R said Skirton seems to be polarizing. I have him early second, late first still, as do I. I think he has enough bend. Some people act like he has a metal rod in his hips and spine. It's because they watched that tape last year. It's not good. Last year was not good. They played him too heavy, and people are undervaluing that. Nick Skirton's going to go in the top 40. If he falls past that, he's going to be one of the great values in this class. Alex S., Mike Green and JPJ are not top 12 locks. The character thing makes them a really hard eval. They're top 12 talents, which actually, now that I see it, and Andres Pinkney said the same thing I was about to say. Oh, Alex S. talking about the drive from Indy to Asheville. I was super caffeinated. I made an entire pot of coffee. Armchair had one little dinky cup. I put the rest of it in a Yeti. That shit didn't make it to Louisville. I chased that with a monster. By the time I got to Lexington, Kentucky, I was smelling sounds and tasting colors. It was aggressive. Matthew Hoffman said, props to the no cigarette thing, though. That shit's tough. Been smoking for 22 years now. That's about how long I was. Never made it longer than 30 days without one. The Geek Bar is solid. The Raz is better. And whatever flavor that floats your boat, if you need one that tastes like cigarettes, they have those. It's the only way I ever quit. Plus, Tank had a heart attack, and I went, I'm 5 years younger than him. Man, that's not good. And he's not fat anymore. I am. Uh-oh. Pissed off Browns fan said it's Cam Ward season, baby. Yes, it is. Yeah, you are taking Cam Ward. I don't really see a way around it. All right, I'm going to go 2 more segments here. We're going to talk about DK Metcalf, possible landing spots for him. I will also get into the offensive line. There's good. God, line is so bad. Like, if you're looking for free agents to sign there, they're going to come in and be even serviceable. Shit. It's tough. That's why I didn't rail on the Raiders for the Alex Kappa thing. Hoffman said he needs one that tastes like a Newport 100 menthol. They have that too. They have one that's got so much menthol it'll make your eyes water. Alex S. said I'm like the human form of Lightning McQueen, so I can dig it. Yes. Caffeine's a hell of a drug. With Kirk departure, is Tet more of a possibility at 5? I don't think so. They don't play the same position. Tet's in play there because of Liam Cohen, and he's made a big receiver work like that. I am starting to think it's more. I'm starting to think Mason Graham is that's the call at 5. I won't be shocked if it's somebody else, but I will be somewhat shocked if it's Tet, just because of where his value is right now. The value's just not on Tedero McMillan at this point. All right, we're going to talk about DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Let's see if there's anything else I forgot. We'll talk about Max Crosby in the last segment, which will be after this one. Okay. And here we go.
Ain't no truth on the radio station. Somebody owes me an explanation. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up.
The Sportsocracy.
And I'm unapologetic.
Back here in the Sportsocracy, ESPN Radio, Asheville, 92.9, 880, 1400. We're talking free agency ahead of the start of the league year next week. And we're talking about the Seattle Seahawks. Things are happening with Seattle. DK Metcalf has requested a trade, and Tyler Lockett has been released. Neither one of those things surprised me even a little bit. Seattle is another team. We don't talk about them as much. They're another one that's in a weird position to me. Because what is your high side? All right, just be able to introspectively look at yourself. And where is this team headed in the next 3 years? All right, Geno Smith's an older quarterback. You nailed it with Devin Witherspoon and Jackson Smith and Jigba 2 years ago. Other than that, where is the we nailed it draft pick? I think Byron Murphy will be really good. I think that. I don't know that. He had Leonard Williams on the inside of him last year, and he wasn't great. Leonard Williams was spectacular. Byron Murphy was average. Witherspoon's a dog. We thought Reek Woolen was a dog. He wasn't as good last year. He hasn't been as good. Edge rusher, good Lord have mercy. It is impossible for Seattle to find an edge rusher. I like Boya Mafe. Other than that, good Lord have mercy. Have you missed on a ton of those guys? In the last 6 drafts, actually, because you had one where you only had 3 picks, which did not go well. Dwayne Eskridge, Trey Brown, and Stone Forsythe. That was when you traded for Jamal Adams. It's also why our roster got exponentially better. Seattle's got exponentially worse. DK Metcalf's one of the only real hits they've had in the last 6 classes. It's honestly a testament to Seattle that they've been able to keep this team together and keep this team competitive for as long as they have. Because be really honest with yourself. What do they do well? All right, the safeties are good. I'll go good. Your defensive line's not great. Your corners are not great. Devin Witherspoon is. The rest of it, Your offensive line's not great. If you take DK Metcalf away from this receiving core, it's not great. And your quarterback is The definition of average. Seattle is a team that nobody wants to talk about, that needs to blow it up. Because there's no future in this. Geno Smith is one of the older quarterbacks in the NFL. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly how old he is, but I know he's not much younger than me. 2 years, maybe 36, 34. 34 and a half, he'll be 35 right after the start of this season. He's not getting any better. Geno Smith's not a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I don't even think he's a playoff winning quarterback. And so I look around the landscape of the league right now. If I can get something for DK Metcalf, I'm going to do it. Is it going to be a young receiver and a 1? No. Deebo Samuel was just had for a 5. Yes, he has injury issues. Yes, it's not as easy as just saying that's the value for a receiver. DK Metcalf's 27 years old. DK Metcalf's also well known to be a head case around league circles. A lot of receivers are. I'm not throwing shade at the guy. He's worth about a second or third round pick. In this draft, do it. Stack up draft capital. Take Ted McMillan if he falls to you at 18. This team's not good. I've had a problem with this team for years. Of you kind of fall into that same line that I said yesterday with the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Green Bay Packers. You're competitive, but for what? You're competitive for a playoff spot. We can sneak in as the 7th team and get our skulls rocked in the playoffs. What exactly is that? You moved off Pete Carroll because you didn't want to keep doing that. And now you're here. In terms of teams that I think would be interested in DK Metcalf, the Buffalo Bills were the first team that came to my mind because I can only imagine what a receiving core that had Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, and DK Metcalf could do in the AFC East. That was my first thought. My second thought was another team in the AFC East, which we're going to talk about the last hour of the show today, the New England Patriots. They have a ton of money. They are terrible at drafting receivers. And I wouldn't be shocked if they were willing to come off a draft pick. Baltimore, anytime a receiver comes on the board, I immediately go to Baltimore. Pittsburgh makes some sense. He says he wants to go to a contender. He also doesn't really have he doesn't really have any leverage to force that. And it gets kind of hard to figure out what contender is going to be jumping up and down to add DK Metcalf. We've heard the Green Bay Packers. What does that look like? Does he consider Green Bay to be a contender? Because to me, they're a step ahead of Seattle. Washington also makes a ton of sense if it was cheap. And by cheap, I mean a third-round pick. Because De'Ami Brown's a free agent. McCaffrey just lost his spot out of the slot to Deebo Samuel. And you have those weapons around Jaden Daniels? Ooh. Ooh. Terry McLaurin's working as your 2. Strong. It's not easy to figure out a spot that makes sense. Pigs 76 said Pete and the Raiders. I can't tell you that one doesn't make sense because I do think the Raiders are going to look to add a weapon of some kind. I just don't know that it would be DK. Pete Carroll has screamed culture. DK Metcalf's not really a culture guy. DK Metcalf's the guy that's getting into fights on the field, penalties at times that don't really make sense. He can get completely rattled. I can't tell you it's wrong. It was one of the teams I had on my list. But I don't love it. If I was the Raiders, I would rather look at this young receiving class and build around whoever my quarterback's going to be, whether it's Sam Darnold, Shedeur Sanders, Aaron Rodgers. It's not Aaron Rodgers. The two that make the most sense are Shedeur and Sam Darnold. But Seattle is another team that just feels like they're running on a treadmill. They did release Tyler Lockett. Lockett, I believe, will have some interest, but I don't think it's going to be insane. I think he'll sign a 1-year, one-off deal because he's at about that age. He's at about that age that you look at receivers and go, he's 33 years old. There's not a lot there. Kansas City is a spot that makes sense for him. I think there are a handful of others. He played on the outside in Philadelphia or in Seattle. I don't know why I keep wanting to call them Philadelphia. I think he's a slot receiver. At this point in his career, that's what he does. Seattle's an interesting case study. Is it better to just be competitive for a long time? Or would you rather just crash and burn for a year and rebuild the roster? I'm a fan of a hopeless franchise. The New York Jets are hopeless. But at least I get new toys every year. I get new free agents. I get high-end draft picks. There's something that I come away with every year going, that's going to be the next great Jet. What does Seattle get? Seattle gets a lot of Charles Cross, who, yes, he's good. But it's not building hope. Byron Murphy's not building hope. Jordan Brooks didn't build hope. L.J. Collier didn't build hope. I just look at that and go, that's got to be one of the hardest fan bases in the NFL to keep watching every single year going, we have no shot. We got the Super Bowl with Pete, and we haven't really been competitive since. It's painful to watch. I feel like I feel like the tides are turning in Seattle with no DK, with no Tyler Lockett. Feels like this is a defensive running team. You're going to have to upgrade the offensive line. Guard is a huge need for them. I've said Armin Mimbu, this is his drop dead spot. But I could also see them taking a Gray Zabel because they're that desperate for a guard. Unfortunately for them, that hasn't ended all that well. When they draft a guy because they have to draft a guy, it tends to end horribly badly. You're in the Sportsocracy, ESPN Radio, Asheville, 92.9, 880 and 1400. I'm Jeremy Green. You can find me on Twitter at ESPN Draft Nerd and all the social medias. Find the show, The Sportsocracy. Coming up next, we're going to preview another couple positions in free agency. Who could be the Zach Bond of this free agency class? I have found one that I like a lot. Tell you who it is after this commercial break. Have I mentioned that I hate recording shows yet? It's like 8 extra steps from just doing it live. Calvin Beermaster Rogers said, well, as a Seattle fan, I feel like shit today. All right, I'm going to ask legit. Do you disagree with anything that I said? And there's no wrong answer there. I'm curious. I'm curious what that answer sounds like. There's an orb around my head that's driving me absolutely nuts. And I can't tell if it's on my screen. Oh, Beermaster said, no, Jeremy, everything you said was true. I'm talking about DK and Lockett. Oh, yeah, I'd totally get that. It's always hard to say bye to a player that's been on a team as long as Lockett has. It just sucks. Like, I love that guy. I understand why we did it, but I love that guy. All right, I have to put something in this window to block the The sun is like right in my eyes. I'll be right back. Oh. Fuck you, asshole son. That's why they make lids for shipping containers. It's gone. Yeah, it's also out of my eyes, which I'm a huge fan of. What positions we do yesterday? It was wide receivers, and I remember wide receivers. Anybody could tell me what we did yesterday and what they want to do today, that would be awesome. Alex says Shaq Thompson and Luke Kuechly leaving hurt my soul. Yeah, I could understand that. I believe we did do edge rushers yesterday. Yeah, because I talked about Khalil Mack. I do remember that quite. Yeah, that's the one. It was edge and wide receiver. Let's see. Defensive backs, tight ends, and running backs. Tight end, okay. We can do tight end. It will not be the longest discussion you've ever heard, but there are a few of them out there. Several that I'm actually really fond of that have just never caught any traction whatsoever. It's always good to see your team losing the best player at a position. It's always encouraging, especially when your team sucks. David L. said, I'd like to hear one off-the-wall player for each team that you try to justify. Like the Titans staying at one and taking Campbell as your next left tackle. Well, hell, they took, what the hell's his name? J.C. Latham. They took him to play left tackle last year, and fuck, I see more left tackle out of Campbell than I do out of Latham. They love taking fringy tackle guard combo guys. Fant and Trimble are dogs. They just never got the love. Trimble's he's like an H-back because he's a good blocker. He's good for like 5 good catches a year. That's about it. I remember when they drafted him, and I think it broke my brain. Because I had a draftable grade on him, but not anywhere near where they took him. I also hate watching teams reach. There's like 10 picks every year where I go, how the fuck did you get there? This year, we will talk about that in day 3 because I'll have Tank to talk to and not be doing this as I had to do last year. All right, so we're going tight ends. Tight ends, running backs, and did we talk about corners yesterday? No. No, we did not. All right. Oh, it shot a monster. Jamie said Dallas reaches a lot. Dallas is one of those teams that makes me go, what the hell was that? It's weird. Every team I do that with, the roster atrophies over time. All right, tight end will be a super short discussion. Running back will be a longer discussion. And cornerback will be the longest of all of them. Safety is one of those where come in. Just recording a live.
Oh.
Now I am on and my microphone is on.
Well, no, I just heard you say what the hell.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was swearing. I'm just on live. We're recording shit as we're going live. My lovely wife just stepped into the office. I think she was checking to make sure I'm still alive.
Yeah, 100% I was.
So I've been back here since lunch.
Exactly. But did you die?
Working on it.
I'll leave you to it.
Such a saint of a woman. Safeties. No Smiles asked, how is your tongue not falling off yet? I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know. The bad thing is I love to talk. I've had to talk so much on screen that I walk out of this office and I just lay on the couch and go, can I just not talk for like an hour? You talk to your heart's content. Can I just not say words? That'd be awesome. That would be sweet. Oh, I also told her, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to run a bath. We have a gigantic jacuzzi tub in this house. I'm just going to lay in that bitch for about an hour. Probably take 6 beers in there. Just, or a gigantic rum and Coke. Okay. Alex S. said safeties. I probably do that one in 10 seconds. Somebody's going to overpay the shit out of Javon Holland, and I'm fine with it. Somebody's going to overpay the shit out of Tali Hafanga. I am not okay with it. Actually, safety's way deeper than I thought. I'll have to do safety tomorrow. That's too deep for me to do with the with corners, running backs, and tight ends. But I can do that because I have to record another one of these shows tomorrow. Okay. Tay asked if I think it's true Genty's not the best running back in the draft. I have Hampton over him, but that's one of those like really confusing evals. If you're just looking for a between the tackles runner that's going to be the head of the snake and you've got a pass catching guy, Genty's better. If you don't have shit, which is like I'm looking at the Chargers, you don't have a damn thing. Kamani Vidal, who I'd still like, then I would go Hampton because I think Hampton can do everything. Genty's the best pure runner. He's one of the best pure runners I've ever seen. He took a step this year. He just didn't do the ancillary things. So I do have Hampton a step ahead of him. I think Genty will go first. But anybody that's watched this for any period of time knows that I absolutely love Amarian Hampton. Notorious B.I.G. Take Malachi Moore completely off the board until the 6th or 7th round. I have Malachi. Where do I have Malachi? He's down there somewhere. He is in the 7th round for me. And he is a cell that is blood red. Like, his cell is so red because I use different shades of red for red flags. His is so red that I had to change the text color to white because I couldn't see black underneath it. All right. I can see how long we have to go here. So I already added that up, but I'm not going to lie to you. I forgot. 29. So I got to go 18 minutes here. All right. Here we go.
Ain't no truth on the radio station. Somebody owes me an explanation. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up.
The Sportsocracy.
And I'm unapologetic.
Back here in the Sportsocracy, 92.9, 880, and 1400. You're in the Sportsocracy, Beer City's best sports talk, brought to you by Ingles Markets. Low prices, love the savings. This weekend, if you're looking for a little entertainment in Asheville, the Ingles Southern Conference Basketball Championships, brought to you by Ingles Markets at the Harris Cherokee Event Center in Asheville. It's going to be great. I'll be there Monday, 5 to 7 with Tank. That'll be our first actual seeing of each other in about a month. He will be on his knee wheelie scooter, and we'll be catching the final. You'll be catching up with the ESPN guys. I'm not sure who's on the call of that game. Usually they tell us, and for some reason every year this one's like a surprise. The last time they did tell us, they were wrong. So, interesting radio thing there. But I'll also be in and out all weekend long at the Harris Cherokee Center, Asheville, catching some basketball. I love basketball in person, and nobody does a tournament better than Ingles putting on the Southern Conference Basketball Championships. Talking about positions in free agency, just a little primer for your free agency dollars. And today, the chat has asked for running back, tight end, and cornerback. I'm going to start with the easiest one to do, which is corner. This is a really good group of corners, kind of like the draft, if you need a zone guy. My number one corner is Javarius Ward. I get it. He was not good last year. He was one of the best corners in the league the 2 years before that. I think you're going to get a way better. You're going to get a way better value out of him because I don't think he's going to come as expensive as some of the other guys in this class. But he is almost strictly a zone guy. I could see him in Atlanta is the one that I keep circling. I think Atlanta's signing one of these guys, whether it's DJ Reed or Javarius Ward. I think they're getting one of them. So it's a question which one. Reed played with Ulbrich in New York. Javarius Ward played for Sala in San Francisco. Javarius Ward did not play for Sala in San Francisco. So I don't really think his showing up is going to change anything for him. I could easily see him taking the money in Atlanta. DJ Reed goes to San Francisco to reunite with Robert Sala. DJ Reed is my number 2 corner in this class. And look, he was a really good Robin to Sauce Gardner's Batman. I'm afraid a team's going to pay him like a true number 1, and I don't think that he is. He's really short. And I think he struggles with bigger receivers. I watched it for, he was with us for 2 years, 3 years. He struggles with big guys. He's very crafty in coverage, though. And if you keep him on twos, he tends to be okay until you come up against like a Cincinnati or somebody that has a big second receiver. Javarius Ward's a natural, honest-to-God one. There are not a ton of those. My third corner in this class, Byron Murphy Jr., the reason that he falls so much lower, I actually think in terms of just sheer coverage ability, he might be better than either of the two I just said. He's just a slot guy. And it's so hard for me to justify, even as the league gets slottier, it's hard for me to justify giving that money to a slot guy. I think he will be the biggest contract that comes out of free agency. PFF has him evaluated at about $50 million 3 years. I think it'll be higher than that. He could get to 20, and it would not stun me. Carlton Davis III, also a high-end corner. He was better in Detroit last year. That's one that I'm going to level. I could easily see with the New York Jets because he's already familiar with Aaron Glenn's scheme. You're going to get him at a little bit better of a value. I think he falls in that $13, $14, $15 million a year range. He replaces DJ Reed. You shore up the secondary. He can play natural as a 2 as opposed to having to play as a 1, which he has done a lot in his career. Then you get to Asante Samuel. I don't know what to do with him. He basically got benched last year. Did have an injury. Couldn't tackle. But then I go back to the 2 previous years. He's one that makes a lot of sense in New Orleans because he did work well with Brandon Staley. And I think there's a possibility that he either stays in L.A. with the Rams or he winds up in New Orleans with Kellen Moore. Mike Hilton, really high-end slot guy. And Rasul Douglas, sorry, I'm not falling for it. I'm sure somebody was thinking, I feel like you're forgetting one. Nope, I'm not. Hey, Buffalo, your corners are bad, and he was one of them. Nope, I don't care. I do not know why everybody is so high on him. PFF has him as the 14th highest ranked free agent in this class altogether. That is insanity to me. Mike Hilton's the real value. I can't figure out why Cincinnati's not just signing him. I get it. You had to take care of the receivers, but you got money. That was one position that I knew was shored up. And that's the one you're letting walk. Okay. If there was a young guy or a younger guy, Paulson Adebo, I think you could get a really good value on him. And I have liked some of him. I really don't like some of him, but I do. I do really like some of it. A lot of people are commenting on my take on slottier. I'm a slotty guy. What can I say? Moving on to running backs. This is a pretty deep class of running backs. It's hard for me to figure out where they're going to go. We start with my overall number 1, which is Najee Harris. He's 4 full years, or almost 4 full years younger than Aaron Jones. So that's why I have him higher. I do not know what that contract's going to look like. He does a lot of things as a running back really well. It's just the production's not really there. Yeah, he keeps getting to 1,000 yards, but he's doing it 3.5 yards per carry. It's hard for me to look at a team and think he's going to – I heard somebody the other day say he was going to get a Josh Jacobs type deal. I just can't figure out from who. Pittsburgh didn't really seem to care to let him walk. And I think that should tell us a lot. That the team that is the most familiar with him just, that's fine. We'll just go find another guy. Aaron Jones is my 2. It's hard for me to trust 30-year-old running backs. He was pretty good last year in Minnesota. I could see him coming back to Minnesota if they don't believe that Amarian Hampton or Ashton Jeanty is going to be there at 24. I think they pick at 24. I could see Aaron Jones back on a 1-year deal. He feels like he has got – there's a stage of running backs' lives where they just vicious cycle sign 1-year deals. Kind of feels like where Aaron Jones is. J.K. Dobbins, I think you could get a really good value out of him, but he's on a 1-year prove-it deal again. Only played 568 snaps last year. He was really good when he played. The problem is he didn't play that much. And he was kind of dinged up for a lot of that. Nick Chubb, 29, coming off another injury. This one was a foot. I don't know what Nick Chubb has left. That's a 1 year, $2 million incentive-laden deal. If you hit on it, awesome. If you don't, nobody's surprised. I did not realize this. In the last 2 years combined, Nick Chubb has only played 289 snaps. That's crazy. And he's only 29 years old. If you can get it out of him, he can be a dog. But his injury history is terrifying. From there, Javonte Williams, I think there's more there. And he's still not even 25 years old. If I was a GM in the NFL and I really needed a running back, I would be taking a swing on Javonte Williams because I still think there's a lot there. And, man, if you hit on it, if you got him 2 years, $10 million, because that's roughly where he's going to come in, and you really hit on that, he has not been the same since the knee injury. But, man, if you could get him rehabbed up and get him back to what he was coming out of North Carolina, I thought he was going to be an absolute stud. But that's one of my offensive Zach Bond type guys. I'm going to prepare a list of that for Tuesday. The Zach Bond team. Free agents that are going to sign really small deals that are going to end up being complete hammers next year. And I can almost promise you he'll be the running back. The other position I was asked to do today was tight end. Number one for me is Tyler Conklin, and it's one with a bullet. His quarterback play has been so unbelievably god-awful that it's really covered up how good he has been. Came up from Minnesota. I think a team could end up giving him a $10 million deal. I remember when the Jets signed him, and I could not figure out for the life of me what it was they saw in him. I figured it out pretty quick. And I think he's never going to be a star. I look at his potential in the NFL almost exactly the same way I look at him in fantasy football. He's never going to be worse than tight end 15. He's also probably never going to be better than tight end 10. And it's just because he is always there. He's a down in, down out guy, and he is super reliable. Most of his catches, though, I will tell you this, are outlet type throws. He doesn't tend to press things much down the middle, but I do really like him. The player that I almost guarantee you gets a deal that doesn't make a lick of sense is Juwan Johnson. That kid couldn't block me, but he's really big. And he's a seam stretcher. And it seems like year in and year out, we see guys like that get deals that don't make any sense. Don't be shocked if he winds up with the Denver Broncos. I heard that no less than 50 times while I was in Indianapolis. My 3 and 4 are basically the same guy, Mike Gesicki. Never really figured out how he didn't become better. I thought he was great in Cincinnati, but he was really just kind of the slot. Zach Ertz at this point in his life is just he's not a blocker. It's virtually impossible to play him high level snaps. And you saw it last year with Washington. If you watch him just in the passing game, and all you're looking at is the high side of how plays end, you can get duped and think, he still can play at 34 years old. Then you watch all 22 tape and watch him in the blocking game and go, no, I don't ever want to ask you to block anybody. I am the tight end whisperer, so I feel like I should be looking for if I was taking a shot on a guy, it's Hunter Long. I've always believed in him, and I still feel like he can be a valuable pass catcher in this league. Also kind of like Harrison Bryant from the Raiders. And go just a smidge deeper than that. I'll go Tommy Tremble. It was pointed out in the YouTube chat. I like Tommy. Much better blocker than he is pass catcher. But he's also a much better pass catcher than many of these guys are blockers. I was also asked to do safety. I did not think I would have time, but it does appear that I will have enough to just hit a pretty deep safety class. My number one free agent in the entire market is Javon Holland. And if I was a team like the Jets or Indianapolis, one of these teams that really needs a safety over the top, I'll give you a bag. What I saw out of him in 2023 was good enough. I think he'd be one of the best safeties in the league. He just doesn't really fit what Miami wants to do. He's hyper athletic. One of the most athletic kids that I have ever evaluated. He's got one of the only perfect 10 athleticism scores that I've ever given to a player. And now that I look at that list, I do realize that I have loved every single one of those guys. But I think he's good. I mean, you're looking $20 million a year for Javon Holland. If you want a little bit of a savings from that, a box safety is Tally Hufanga. He's another one that I have a pretty good feeling is going to get way more than he should. Box guy, really high-end value. 5th-round pick from San Francisco in 21. And the good of him's been really good. He's just such a limited guy because he can really only do what he does, and he can only really do that in that system. And there's only a handful of teams that play it. My 3 would be Cam Bynum. I didn't think he was as great last year as a lot of other teams did. The 23 tape was better for him. And I think I pushed him down subconsciously because I think he's going to get more money than he deserves. Then you get into the Justin Reeds, Harrison Smith. I can't really wrap my brain around seeing Harrison Smith playing in a uniform that's not a Vikings jersey. But it does appear that that's where we're headed, even though Minnesota has money. Justin Reed is a really talented, kind of do-everything guy. But he's coming off his best season, and that was in a contract year. And anybody that's listened to us for any period of time knows how I feel about those guys. Trayvon Morig, I would rather go there than Tally Hufanga because I think you're going to get him for way cheaper. And then Justin Simmons, he just never really clicked with Atlanta. I thought him and Jesse Bates was going to be special, and it didn't wind up being. I did not say Jeremy Chin, but that's because I really feel like Jeremy Chin's going to wind up back in Washington. And if I was taking a flyer on a guy, it's Andre Sisco. I loved him coming out of Syracuse, and I still love him now. Just because that Jacksonville defense did not – it didn't really narrow in on him, never really clicked for him. I think he can be special in the right spot, and he's still only 25 years old. Actually, I hadn't even turned 25 yet. His birthday's the same day as mine. I did not know that until just now. All right, that is safeties, tight ends, running backs, cornerbacks. As we prepare for free agency to start Wednesday of next week, Tank and I will be live for that. We'll also be live on Tuesday for our first show back together. He will be back from Washington. I will be in Asheville, and we can do a live ESPN radio show. Tomorrow, I will be previewing more position groups. We will, in the next hour, get to the Easts, the AFC East and the NFC East, as we preview more of the free agency class and all of the things that are going to happen in free agency. We're going to talk about dollars. A lot of teams in the East don't have much money, but there are a couple in the East that do. We'll talk about it next. Coming back, hour 3. ESPN Radio, Asheville, and the Sportsocracy. I got completely lost as to what hour it was. I was about to be like, hey, we're just done doing shit. No, we're not. You got another hour, stupid. Oh, however, I am not going to do that hour right now because I am cooked. 2 hours, 55 minutes. This was basically like an ESPN radio show, but it was recorded, and I still have an hour left to record of it. So there's that. I'm going to address some things in the chat. I just saw them out of the corner of my eye. Pissed off Browns fan said Jermaine Burton's been a menace since high school. Yeah, he is a terrible kid. Just and I knew it. I heard it last year, and I ran from him like he was on fire. Let's see. Detroit fan man said he would be much better with Carlton Davis going to the Jets as opposed to going somewhere in the division. I haven't actually heard him in that division, but I've heard there are several teams interested in him. Let's see. Tay said Juwan Johnson is a bad tight end. You're right. He is a really bad tight end, but he is a big athletic dude. And God, do people love overpaying that. Every single year. They overdraft it. They overpay it. Let's see. Pigs 76 said Michael Mayer's available for a trade. I would be all the way in for that. He also said, I hope Javon Holland goes to the Raiders. Hey, he's a Jet. I need something to make me want to continue watching football other than the draft. I love Javon Holland. He actually would be a really good fit with the Raiders. I'm not sure that they want to spend that much on a safety, but there's going to be very few teams that do. Because he's going to command big, big boy money. Morig is a free agent, and I think he's going to get a bag from somewhere. Just not as big as Hufanga for doing very similar things. All right, guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me as I recorded these things. I apologize again for being late. Just a lot of stuff going on with the basketball tournament this weekend, and I had some of their equipment that was in the back of my truck. I had no clue, so I had to get that down to them. We're gonna get mock drafts, A+ mock drafts start pumping out tomorrow, and we'll be back for this recording in this time slot tomorrow. And we'll be doing that for Friday. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Hopefully I remember what hour it is. I didn't at the end of that last one. So I have to go back and check that and make sure I didn't say anything stupid. But you guys have a great night. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I am at ESPN Draft Nerd Jeremy Green. This is the Sportsocracy, and we will see you tomorrow.
How's the weather up there on the high horse that you fed with your daddy's money? How's it feel to be fake as a motherfucker? Hey, let me tell you something. They don't give a damn when the money's gone, when the people in the stands don't sing along. Cause you know you ain't the man that's behind the song, thinking it'll work, but it won't. Ain't no truth on the radio station. Somebody owes me an explanation. Well, I get knocked down, I get back up. Anything they ask you, do it. Well, I know the ringer, I've been drugged to hell and back, been through it. Your time's tick-tock and I said, and I'm unapologetic. Cancel, yeah, you can try. You can't cancel what's been tonight. I ain't been had a shit, no silver spoon, and hair